Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to race day for race 4 of the 2025 Formula 1 season, and of course, the Bahrain Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that, with the grid we've got, promises quite a bit today. It should be, as I said at the end of yesterday's qualifying stream, it should be definitely a better race than what we had in Japan. Easier to overtake here. Also, looking at the tyre strategy, we're looking to have probably more of a mix-up on the strategy from certain teams. So that should allow the race to be a bit more interesting anyway. But yeah, with the mixed-up grid we've got, I'd be very surprised if this was just as bad as what we had at Suzuka. It should be at least quite an interesting Grand Prix today. Many fights there will be throughout the field, not necessarily for the race win, because the man on pole really should, as long as he leads the first lap, he really should go on to comfortably win. But if you look outside of who's going to win the race, the fight for the two remaining podium positions and the rest of the top 10 should be pretty interesting and should be pretty close as well. So yeah, this is going to be an exciting Grand Prix to a certain extent, I think, and hopefully we do get a bit of an alternate strategy out there from certain teams and at least 2 stops, which according to Pirelli is the fastest way to do the race today, is a 2-stop strategy. A 1-stop strategy is possible, but the thing that normally harms you doing an extra pit stop is, getting held up by traffic. That isn't really a factor at this track because you can overtake in so many areas. So you can't really get held up that much by pitting an extra time. So fingers crossed, it should be a 2-stop race for most cars. I'm sure we'll see maybe a couple go for a 1-stop race, but I think we will probably see a 2-stop race, especially given how competitive the field should be. The drivers out there, I think, will be pushing pretty hard a lot of the time because they'll have to if they want to get certain results in this Grand Prix. So yeah, it should be, like I said, quite a bit better than what we saw last week in Japan. Hope you guys are well and hope you are all as excited as I am for this Bahrain Grand Prix. And no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're in right now and are from, hope you're all doing as well as possible on this Sunday afternoon. For me, obviously, we'll be crossing into the early evening in Bahrain for this Bahrain Grand Prix. And yeah, fingers crossed that it will deliver somewhat today. There is a poll running, of course, at the top of the live chat where I've asked you guys, who do you think wins today's Bahrain Grand Prix? Will it be the pole sitter Oscar Piastri, or will it be George Russell, Lando Norris, or Charles Leclerc? No Max Verstappen in the poll because I just don't think he can get the race win today because that Red Bull car really handling quite poorly, and I just don't think it's possible for Verstappen to win the race. And I'll be honest, if he gets on the podium, that would be a bit of a miracle, given just how poor the handling was yesterday and how much trouble Red Bull are having with that car at the moment. So yeah, that's why Max is not in the poll, but you never know with Verstappen. We'll have to see what happens in the Grand Prix. In this race build-up, though, we're going to go through the usual stuff, looking at what happened yesterday and looking at the data from yesterday to understand why the grid ended up the way it did and why certain teams are so quick and why certain teams are not so quick. And then we'll get into the race pace from Friday, look at the long runs to see who's got some good long run pace, and obviously I will let you know who did what long run on what compound of tyre because there were a few differences in the field. And then, obviously, I'll give my final prediction ahead of the race. We'll do a roundup as well of the teams, and I will go through the strategy in terms of the best strategy options for today, and according to Pirelli, what they think the best strategy for the race is, or what the strategy options are from Pirelli. Niblo, my co-commentator, who of course has been on for the last couple races, he will be joining me today, just a bit later. I think last week he was on about an hour before the race. He will be on about half an hour before the race. So in what, an hour and 20 minutes from now, he should be on. So yeah, he will be joining in decent time before the Grand Prix. But yeah, I think we will just get straight into things and look at the grid we've got. And here is your top 10. Couple changes to the top 10 from post-qualifying penalties. Oscar Piastri is on pole. That is absolutely confirmed. Brilliant pole position, delivering the lap that was absolutely there to be delivered, and he delivered under pressure, unlike his teammate. George Russell second, absolutely fantastic lap from him, but he was given, along with his teammate Kimi Antonelli, a one-place grid penalty because both Mercedes cars joined the fast lane of the pit lane before an official restart time was given for Q2 after the red flag came out for Esteban Ocon's crash. So both Mercedes cars given a one-place penalty. So Russell will start third and Antonelli will start in fifth, meaning it will be Charles Leclerc on the front row. The lap Leclerc did anyway in qualifying was very good to get himself right up there, especially when Ferrari have been struggling this weekend. So yeah, Leclerc will be on the front row of the grid, which I think, I think he was on the front row here last year. Didn't quite go to plan. He ended up in fourth and had made a lot of mistakes in the race. We'll see how today goes. But yeah, it'll be Russell then in third. Pierre Gasly, because of Antonelli's penalty, will line up in the Alpine fourth on the grid. Remember, Alpine have not scored a point yet this season, yet they're going to be on the second row of the grid for this Bahrain Grand Prix. I knew Alpine had a decent amount of pace. I mean, from practice, that was clear to see that there was more there, because Doohan was, I think, a couple tenths of a second quicker than Gasly in practice. And we know Gasly normally is quicker than Doohan, especially around this Bahrain track, one of Gasly's best tracks. So there was potential in the Alpine maybe to make Q3, but fourth on the grid, yeah, that is absolutely mental. And Gasly 100% was the driver of the day in qualifying. And I think absolutely should be scoring a few points today to get Alpine, maybe not off the bottom of the championship, but at least get some points on the board for that team this season. Lando Norris will be sixth on the grid, just behind Kimi Antonelli. Awful qualifying. He was very scathing of his own performance after qualifying, saying he drove like he had never driven an F1 car before. I'm not sure it was that bad, but it was pretty bad. It was one of the worst, if not the worst, performance by any driver in qualifying, given how good the car is. He should have been at the absolute worst in third place, yet he's sixth on the grid. You just cannot tolerate that if you're McLaren. And Norris has put himself in a tricky predicament because he, really should be getting on the podium given how quick that McLaren is. But with, certain cars ahead of him looking quick themselves and also being quite quick down the straights, namely the Ferrari of Leclerc, it's not going to be entirely easy. But yeah, and as well, in view to the championship, he's really hurt his, his weekend in view to that championship. Because if Oscar Piastri does win today and Lando does not finish on the podium, then Piastri will go level with Norris in the championship. And if Lando can't even finish in the top four, Piastri, if he wins, will take the lead of the Drivers' Championship, unless, of course, Max Verstappen somehow finishes in the top three. But I think, again, realistically, that's not going to happen. That Red Bull just is not handling well enough So it could be a very costly day for Norris. Not so much for Verstappen, because he knows, and we all know, that Red Bull is not as good as the McLaren, and it will take time for Red Bull to get on par with McLaren on a consistent basis. But for Lando, again, as I said a few weeks ago, when it was clear McLaren had the best car on the grid to start the season, Lando especially had to strike whilst the iron was hot, and he is not doing that right now. Piastri absolutely is, and if he wins today, that'll be his second win of the year, when Lando, of course, his only win of the year, still back from Melbourne. So, yeah, just very disappointing from Lando Norris, and needs at least a podium today to at least take a few points away, or extend a few points over Max Verstappen, and at least keep the lead of the championship going into next week's race in Saudi Arabia. And then 7th on the grid, Max Verstappen. Yes, the Red Bull had handling issues and braking issues in qualifying, but I think that's really what the Red Bull, that was all it was capable of in qualifying. Maybe, yeah, if Max didn't have those issues with the braking and the handling, maybe, yeah, he could have been a lot higher up, but that's just fundamentally issues with the Red Bull car that can't be fixed right now. So I think Max honestly did the best he could given those issues, but still, obviously, that is not good enough, and Red Bull really not in a good position. I remember they won this race and had a 1-2 last year in Bahrain. That is pretty much impossible this year around. Carlos Sainz in 8th. Now, good lap from Sainz to be 8th on the grid, especially after the season he's had. Still a tad disappointing, though, because if you go and look at his Q3 time, it was only a couple tenths of a second better than what he did in Q2, when everybody else was gaining by 5 to 6 tenths of a second compared to their Q2 time. So he could have, I think, ended up maybe ahead of Verstappen on the grid. I'm not saying he would have been way higher if he had done a bit or got a bit more out of his final lap. He definitely could have got more out of his final lap. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think he could have out-qualified Verstappen, especially with the issues Verstappen had. So there is more pace in that Williams than what appeared to be the case in Q3. So watch out for Williams. They've definitely got a good amount of pace for this race today, especially in the midfield pack. Lewis Hamilton 9th. He's been poor all weekend. Was poor really through qualifying and ended up in P9. There's not really much else to say. As we've said before, Lewis is clearly washed and past his best. And even he criticised himself after qualifying, saying he just didn't get anywhere near enough out of the car. He should have been Lewis, really, at worst in, 7th? At the absolute worst, given where Leclerc was on lap time. But instead, 9th on the grid and 6 tenths of a second off the pace of his teammate. That is nowhere near good enough. And it's just replicating basically what happened last season. Very, very poor. And then Yuki Tsunoda 10th. Tsunoda, another driver who could have done a better lap time in Q3, but I don't think it would have resulted in a higher position. That Red Bull car just wasn't, it just didn't have a lot more pace in it, really. So Tsunoda, honestly, I thought did a good job to get into Q3. And then the bottom half of the order, Jack doing 11th. Still not the worst qualifying in the world, but made to look a lot worse after Gasly's lap. Isaac Hadjar 12th. I think Hadjar had more potential in that car, and I think he's definitely a driver to watch out for today. If there's anyone outside of the top 10 who could score points, I think Hadjar and Alex Albon in the Williams in 15th. I think those are the two drivers you've really got to look out for. Alonso 13th, did the best he could. That Aston Martin is absolutely horrendous. It probably is the slowest car on the grid this weekend, but somehow he's dragged it to 13th on the grid. 14th Ocon had a DNF, obviously, from his crash, but was able initially to make it through to Q2. And then, as you guys know, Nico Hülkenberg made it through to Q2 and Alex Albon was knocked out in Q1. Albon, though, has been promoted ahead of Hülkenberg on the grid, and Hülkenberg's times from Q2 have been deleted. And the reason that is, and I think also his best time from Q1 was deleted as well. And the reason that is because Hülkenberg committed a track limit violation at the end of Q1, but because it was at a corner that the FIA were not monitoring closely, they did not delete his lap time right away. They only deleted it after Q2 had finished, meaning Alex Albon should have been allowed to participate in Q2 and maybe Q3. But because of the FIA's fuck-up, Albon was knocked out in Q1. So that really hurt Williams, and especially hurts given that, again, Albon could very well have been in Q3 and ended up on the fourth row of the grid, especially looking at where Carlos Sainz was. So that is a major fuck-up by the FIA. Thankfully, they've admitted to that and said that they got it wrong. But yeah, that is a really poor mistake from the FIA, costing Albon quite a lot of positions and making his race a lot harder. Not impossible for him to score points. Definitely can score points from 15th on the grid, but shocking from the FIA. Really, really poor. So it'll be Hülkenberg 16th, Liam Lawson 17th. Lawson, by the way, continues to have a shocking season. Not just getting hammered by now Isaac Hadjar, but Lawson cost himself getting into Q2 because he forgot to open DRS in the DRS activation point right before the finish line. You guys will know there's a DRS activation point right before the finish line. Is it a couple 100 meters or 300 meters before the finish line? And he forgot to open his DRS. So he cost himself probably just about the amount of time that would have got him into Q2. So, yeah, absolute disaster from Liam Lawson there. And like I said, continues to have a shocking Formula 1 season. Gabriel Bortoleto 18th. Can't really complain too much. The Sauber isn't that quick. And they were always going to have at least one car eliminated in Q1. Should have been both cars, but yeah, I can't really complain there about Bortoleto. Stroll 19th. Can't really complain about Stroll either. The Aston Martin, like I said, is really bad. Behrman, though, 20th. He should have done a lot better. He could have been someone who maybe could have featured in the top 10. He was looking quick in practice, but then delivered a horrible final lap in qualifying 1. And that's why he ended up in last place, because his final lap was just so abysmal. But we'll see what progress he can make. He should make a few places up. That Haas car is definitely quicker than the Saubers and the Aston Martins, and probably will be quick enough to pass Lawson as well. Also, Ocon, starting from 14th, even though he had a big crash yesterday, he probably could have been 12th or 13th at worst on the grid. So Haas have got a bit more potential than what they showed. So yeah, keep an eye out for them in the Grand Prix today. But that is your grid. Obviously, we'll go through the starting grid again right before lights out. Let's get into the sector time data to just understand why it ended up the way it did. Mercedes were the quickest in the first sector, just like they were in practice. They've been very quick in Sector 1 all weekend, and that just replicated itself once again in the first sector in qualifying. McLaren only just behind. Red Bull a 10th of a second behind, really lagging a bit too far behind in this part of the lap. Red Bull should be right on the pace of Mercedes and McLaren in this part of the lap. There's no excuse, I'm afraid. Alpine, incredibly impressive. 4th quickest in this part of the lap, especially with the weakest power unit on the grid. And you have to remember the first sector is mostly flat out. So, yeah, very impressive. Williams 5th. Ferrari 6th best only in the first sector. Really poor. They should be the quickest team in this part of the lap. This should be the part of the lap where they are or at their best, let's say. So, yeah, 0.2 of a second, I would say, missing in this part of the lap. And if they had had that extra 0.2, Leclerc probably legitimately would have outqualified Russell and would be legitimately on the front row of the grid. But yeah, poor pace in the first sector. The only explanation is that in the slow corner of turn 1 and medium speed corner of turn 4, they just had poor grip, which, again, we have seen this season that in the slow and medium speed corners, they just don't have, especially the front end that McLaren and Mercedes do, which is really important in slow and medium speed corners. And that's clearly translated itself here. So, yeah, just very disappointing from Ferrari. Sauber then next up. The Racing Bulls quite a bit slower in the first sector than they were in practice. Haas not too great, even though Ocon wasn't able in qualifying 2 to do an even better lap than he did in what do you call it, in Q1. So more potential in that Haas, definitely. I'm not sure how much more though in this part of the lap. And then Aston Martin the slowest in the first sector, which is absolutely no surprise. Their car not only lacking grip, but it is a draggy mess in a straight line. The middle sector, though, this is where McLaren are clearly superior to the rest. 0.1 of a second clear of the next best car. The next best car being the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. And I think that legitimizes that Alpine does have good pace. It's not just Alpine taking a load of wing off and being super quick down the straights that's allowed them to be where they are on the grid. They do have in the corners a legitimately good car. Whether it's good enough to be on the podium, I don't think it's quite that good, but it's a good car, and it should, again, score some points today. So, yeah, that, again, legitimizes just how good of a lap it was. Mercedes, maybe you could argue should do a bit better in this part of the lap, but this is really the difference between the McLaren and Mercedes cars right now, and it's the difference that Mercedes have got to try and find and make up with an upgrade. So, yeah, that's just the simple reality. Ferrari 0.1 back. Nothing more Ferrari could do in this part of the lap. They just don't have the grip in that middle sector that McLaren do. Red Bull, though, a bit further off, which, again, not good enough. They should be at least, I would say, 0.1, probably about 0.1 at most, better in this part of the lap than they were. And definitely were not showing the absolute max potential of the car. And that wasn't because of a mistake. It was because the car's handling issues and braking issues. Williams, not too bad, and then a big drop-off of 3.5 to the Racing Bulls of Isaac Hadjar. And then another big drop-off of a couple tenths of a second to Sauber, Aston Martin and Haas. Yeah, big field spread in this middle sector, and that's really, the middle sector is what is separating all of the cars this weekend. Because in the first and final sector, it's not really that much separating the field. And then the final sector, McLaren the quickest, as they have been all weekend. Mercedes not far behind. Ferrari not that far behind either. I think both Mercedes and Ferrari doing absolutely fine in the final sector compared to McLaren. Alpine, once again, pretty good. Red Bull, again, should be doing better. They really should be at least 0.1 of a second better in this final part of the lap than they were. So, if those handling issues, the snaps of oversteer we saw and the braking issues, if they were not there, then there probably was another 4 to 0.5 of a second in that car that was, I think, possibly there. So if they can just dial that out of the car, there is a lot more potential, I think, in that Red Bull than has been shown this weekend. But they clearly, I think, just either got the setup wrong or the car just is not coping well with this particular track. But I do think there is more potential in that Red Bull than has been shown. Williams, not too bad in this part of the lap. And then Sauber, Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, and Haas rounding out the field. But yeah, qualifying. We go back. Well, actually, we'll go back in a moment to the results. But yeah, I was going to say qualifying. The top six only separated by 4.5 tenths of a second, which is pretty close because half a second was the gap between first and I think third on the grid at last year's Bahrain Grand Prix. So you can see just how much closer things are compared to last year. But I just want to go through the top speeds quickly because obviously this is very important for the race. Ferrari, very quick down the straights. That top speed of Leclerc's, though, absolutely, he had a slipstream for that top speed he recorded. This speed trap data, by the way, is from the speed trap located at the end of the pit straight. Lewis Hamilton, he did a top speed that was a lot more representative, I think, of what their actual top speed was. And it was about 321 kilometers an hour, which was only slightly quicker down the straights than the Red Bull, but as you can see, about 3 to 4 kilometers an hour quicker than the Mercedes and McLaren cars. Very impressive, by the way, that McLaren got pole around what is, to a lot of people, a power track. They got pole with the slowest top speed, so that just shows you how incredibly good that McLaren car is. And also the Mercedes car, one of the slowest top speeds, yet they were on the front row of the grid and were within 2 tenths of pole. So those, again, the McLaren and Mercedes cars, very good in terms of handling. Probably the two best cars handling-wise on the grid, the McLaren and Mercedes cars. Sauber, decent top speed, obviously. Ferrari powered. Williams, good top speed, no surprise there. And then Racing Bulls, Red Bull. Aston Martin a bit better with their top speed, but that's probably because they've had to cut a slight bit of wing off just to be a bit more competitive down the straights, but they're still not that quick, obviously, in the first or final sector where that would be relevant. Alpine, you can see, not very quick compared to the others in the main speed trap, which again shows just how impressive that lap was from Pierre Gasly to be just under 4 tenths from pole with a car not very quick down the straights. And then, yeah, Mercedes and then Haas, who still have a top speed deficit, which is still costing them quite a bit. And hopefully they can cut that drag, hopefully, in a few races' time with an upgrade. And then, yeah, McLaren getting pole position with the slowest top speed, which only exemplifies just how good that McLaren car is. And the same again with the Mercedes car. Those two cars, very, very well balanced through the corners. So watch out, mainly for the Ferrari-powered and the Honda-powered teams of Racing Bulls and Red Bull as well. Williams, we know, always have a good top speed. So, yeah, watch out for those types of teams if they do have a bit of DRS today. But let's have a quick look at what the long runs were on Friday, because, of course, it is relevant to today's Grand Prix. Now, you will have to take some of this data with a pinch of salt, quite a big, actually, pinch of salt in regards to one team and driver, because yeah, quite wild lap time on average for one of the drivers and on this sheet that I'm about to show you. But it might give us, for the rest of the field, a decent indication as to what the race pace should be like in the race. But also, not everyone did their long runs on the same compound of tyre. We had some do their runs on the soft compound. A couple drivers or a couple teams did hard compound tyre runs. And then a few teams did a medium tyre run. So, let's get into it. And yeah, Fernando Alonso, on average, had the best race pace, a 1:37.0 on the soft compound tyre. a second lap quicker than McLaren. Now, we know, obviously, that's going to be the case. Aston Martin were clearly running with quite a bit less fuel. So you can really forget Aston Martin's pace there. They will have one of the slowest cars in the race today. I have no doubt about that. Piastri, though, in the McLaren, he did his long run on the hard compound tyre. Now, the hard tyre is the C1 compound. Pirelli have gone very conservative this weekend, unfortunately, with tyres, which unfortunately could lead to a one-stop race if the degradation doesn't prove to be as bad as maybe first feared. The quickest race tyre really should be the medium, given how hard the hard compound tyre is. And that's why, fingers crossed, I don't think we're going to see the hard compound tyre that much, because I think it is too hard to really provide you with enough pace. Yes, it will provide you with lots of durability, but I'm not sure it's got really any pace in the tyre for you to really be quick enough compared to if you're on the medium or the soft compound. So, yeah, Piastri and McLaren have a very strong race pace. No doubt about it. Whether it's soft, medium, or hard, they have got a very strong race pace. And like I said, with Piastri, as long as he leads the first lap, he should comfortably win the race. He's not going to win the race by half a minute or anything ridiculous like that, but he will win comfortably, no doubt. Williams, though, very good long run pace, and that long run was done on the soft compound tyre. Russell, just behind him in the Mercedes, also did a soft tyre run. So Williams, watch out for them. Got a good long run pace, it appears. Then a half a second drop off to Ferrari and Red Bull, and Leclerc did a medium tyre run, whilst Max Verstappen did a soft tyre run. So I think Red Bull should be not much quicker than Ferrari in the race today, but they should be in clear air, probably just a slight bit quicker. But yeah, it is interesting to see that Red Bull decided to do a soft tyre run as opposed to a medium tyre run, where they probably would have been a lot quicker, but on the same compound, they were a lot slower than Mercedes and even Williams, which is, yeah, very interesting. And then you've got Hadjar and the Racing Bulls, who did his run on the medium compound tyre, which, again, should be the quickest race tyre. Gasly and the Alpine did his run on the hard compound tyre, so Alpine should be, I think, quicker than Racing Bulls, Haas, Sauber, and Aston Martin in the race today. Whether they're quicker than Williams, though, we'll have to find out. I think it won't be a massive difference, honestly, between the two. And then Ocon in ninth, he did his long run on the medium compound tyre. And Bortoleto and the Sauber also on the medium compound tyres. So, race pace-wise, it's looking as expected, except for Aston Martin. And we can forget about that time they were doing. The big surprise, though, is Williams being just so quick. And that is what we need to look out for. Can Williams maintain that sort of pace? They were very quick in testing. And I do think this circuit suits them more than like the last track we went to at Suzuka, definitely compared to Racing Bulls, who clearly go better at tracks with, say, higher speed corners. This track, not quite on the same level as that, and obviously a lot more straights, which again, I think suits Williams more. So yeah, we will keep an eye out for Williams in the race and whether they can have that type of race pace. If they could, then they really could pick up a few points today. But that's all the key data from the weekend so far, and of course, most importantly, from qualifying. Before, though, I get on to the before I get on to my predictions, I just want to quickly go through what I think the pecking order of pace will be today. McLaren will have the fastest car, no doubt. Mercedes will be second quickest. Third quickest, I think in clear air, probably the Red Bull, but not by much over the Ferrari of Leclerc. So I think it'll be pretty close between Ferrari and Red Bull. Again, Red Bull slightly quicker in clear air, but only slightly, maybe a tenth at most. And then, yeah, Ferrari 4th, Alpine 5th, and then Williams close behind in 6th, and then it should be Racing Bulls 7th, Haas 8th, Sauber 9th, Aston Martin 10th. That's what I think the pecking order of speed will be in the race today. The only areas I could be wrong is obviously Red Bull and Ferrari, and maybe Red Bull will be a lot quicker today. We'll find out. And with Alpine and Williams, yeah, maybe Williams will be a lot quicker. Maybe Alpine will be a lot quicker. Who knows? We'll have to see. But that's how I think it will be pace-wise in the race today. And based on that, let's get into my final race prediction for this Bahrain Grand Prix. And obviously I've gone with my predicted gaps as well throughout the field in terms of the gaps through the top 10 and how big it will be. So Oscar Piastri, I think, wins this Bahrain Grand Prix, again, comfortably. 12 seconds, I think the gap will be ahead of George Russell, who will be only 3 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. Norris will be close in the end, but not close enough. I think Russell has enough speed and is driving well enough himself to finish ahead of Lando Norris. And if he was to finish in second and Norris was third, that would be a big result for Russell because he would cut the championship lead down between Norris and himself to 14 points, which is pretty good for Russell if he was to end up only 14 points behind after the first 4 races with a car that can get better. So, yeah, Russell, absolutely, if he can finish in the top 2, must do, because it will really help his championship bid. Lando Norris, I think, will finish in 3rd. I think that McLaren is just comfortably quicker than anything else out there, and I think that will help Norris get to 3rd. Leclerc will finish a few seconds behind in 4th, just ahead of Antonelli 5th, who probably will be quicker overall for the race, but just won't have the straight line speed to overtake Leclerc today. So that's why I think Antonelli finishes P5 behind Leclerc in 4th. Max Verstappen a few seconds behind, I think he'll be in 6th. I just don't think Red Bull have got a quick enough car, really. Pierre Gasly in 7th. And yeah, I think Gasly will only be around half a minute off the race winner by the end. I know that sounds quite close, but if you go and look, last week in Japan, Isaac Hadjar on the Racing Bulls car was only 37 seconds off the race winner. So things have closed up a lot this year, and I think that this weekend, this race will represent that quite a bit. Carlos Sainz, I think, will finish a few seconds behind in 8th place, and just behind Sainz will be Lewis Hamilton in 9th place. I think those two will be fighting pretty much all race long, but I think Sainz will keep ahead. The reason I think Hamilton stays in 9th is because, one, he's been very slow this weekend, plus the Ferrari, we know its race pace is not good, and he is not getting the best out of that car either, which is why I think he stays in 9th place. And then in 10th, about 15 seconds or so behind, will be Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, who I think just about will fend off Hadjar and Albon in the Racing Bulls and Williams car, respectively. And maybe Esteban Ocon as well, who is another driver to look out for. So yeah, that's how I think the top 10 will go. And if it was to finish this way, Lando Norris would still lead the championship, but Oscar Piastri would go up to 2nd place and only be 3 points behind. And Verstappen would drop to he would be 8 points behind in 3rd, and then Russell would be 14 points behind in 4th, with Antonelli in 5th, and then Leclerc would grab some more points as well and be in 6th place. So that's how I think it'll play out. Let me know, guys, in the live chat and in the poll running in the chat as well, how you think it will play out today. Who do you think wins the Bahrain Grand Prix? Let me know. And for the podium, what do you think the podium will be? I'm expecting quite a few different predictions because we could have quite a few different looking podiums today. We could have Piastri winning from Russell and Antonelli, or Russell and Leclerc. Maybe Russell doesn't finish on the podium. Maybe it's Antonelli and Norris, or Norris and Antonelli. Yeah, we could have a few different types of podiums. Again, Oscar Piastri is the clear favourite, I think, to win. But who finishes behind him? It is up for grabs. No doubt about that. But yeah, let me know, guys, in the live chat who you think wins and finishes on the podium today. Let me just quickly get the timer back on screen. And I'll just wait for the next minute to tick over, then I'll get it back on screen for you guys. As I'm going to quickly just go through what Pirelli have said is the best race strategies for today, because obviously that is important for us to know. So, yeah, just give me a few seconds. There you go. We've got an hour and 18 minutes until the start of this Grand Prix. By the way, we're on 26 likes. Thanks for the likes so far. Let's try and get those likes up, though, if we can. To say, I don't know, 40 or 50 plus likes in the next half an hour. That'd be great if we could do that. But let me just get up Pirelli's tweet about the best race strategy. And according to them, there are 4 different 2-stop options. There is a 1-stop option. The 1-stop option is to start on the medium compound tyre, pit between lap 22 and 28, and then finish the race on the hard compound tyre. I mean, you could maybe Piastri will try that if he's very quick and has a lot more pace compared to the rest of the field. But really, I don't see that strategy really being able to work because, again, people on 2 stops and fresher tyres will make their way through the field pretty quickly because, again, it is easy to overtake here. You can't really get away with doing one less pit stop here because, again, you can't really keep ahead at this track on older tyres. But let's go through the quickest 2-stop options. So the quickest is to start on the soft compound tyre, pit between lap 10 and 16, go onto a set of mediums, and then pit again between lap 32 and 38 and finish the race on another set of mediums. Or you could pit between lap 10 and 16 if you start on the soft compound tyre, then go onto a set of hard tyres and pit between lap 33 and 39, only slightly longer than the medium, and then finish the race on a set of mediums. Or there are 2 other 2-stop options where you could start on the medium compound tyre. One is pitting from lap 14 to 20, again starting on the medium, going onto a set of hard tyres, pitting between lap 34 and 40, and then finishing the race on a set of medium tyres. Or the final 2-stop option is to pit between lap 16 and 22 when starting on the medium, then going onto the hard compound tyre and pitting between lap 38 and 44, and then finishing the race on the soft compound tyre. I think you might get a couple midfield runners try that, purely so they can have very fresh, fast, grippy tyres for the end. But yeah, there are many 2-stop options for today, and it should be a 2-stop race. And we will... And yeah, we will see how that plays out. But as you can see, yeah, an hour and 15 minutes to go until the race gets underway. I've just seen some horrific news that Chelsea are 2-0 down to Ipswich, which just makes me want to do horrible things to myself, honestly. Yeah, that is absolutely just blown me away, that news. Only half time, though, so yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But let's see what you guys have to say. Hopefully you're having a better Sunday than I am. Will F1 saying Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, and Alonso are the top 4 drivers on the grid. I think with the top 3, I could probably agree. I think with Alonso, though, it's hard to say if he's the 4th best. I think I'm not sure I would argue against that, but I think it is also pretty hard to say exactly where Alonso is at on the grid. I think definitely behind Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell, who are the best 3 in Formula One right now. I think right now, I'd probably say Verstappen and Russell are the top 2 so far this season. But yeah, with Alonso, he's still performing at a high level, but where exactly does he rank through the field? I don't know. But definitely top 10, no doubt about that. Anyway, let's go to the start of these comments and see what you guys are having to say. Astro, good to see you, mate, says for his prediction, Piastri to win, Russell 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Norris 4th, Antonelli 5th, Hamilton 6th, Sainz 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Gasly 9th, and Doohan in P10. So no Verstappen in your top 10, interestingly. But other than that, yeah, that's very plausible, that top 10. Astro saying, I'd be surprised if Russell doesn't get a podium tonight, provided he finishes the race. Yeah, he should be on the podium. Even though he had his 1-place penalty dropping him behind Leclerc, that Mercedes is clearly quicker than the Ferrari. Not just in quali trim, but in the race as well. It is clearly the faster car. So it's just a matter of time, really. And for Russell, hopefully, he can get past Leclerc straight as soon as possible and then start to pull away from the pack behind, especially whilst Lando Norris tries to battle his way through. Because the only driver that can stop George Russell from finishing 2nd is Lando Norris. So that's really who his race is with today, is Lando. So as long as he beats Lando, then all good. And obviously make sure he's on the podium. That is, that'd be mission accomplished for Russell, especially to help his championship bid. Astro says, reckon Norris versus Max at the start could be very interesting, with Max being very keen to get ahead, Norris being a bad starter, but also keen. Well, very keen after Japan not to let him by. I see what you mean, but I think Lando's more worried about the cars ahead that he's going to have to overtake at some point. I mean, yeah, he doesn't want to have a bad start because that would just make things even worse. But I think, he just needs to make sure he gets away, at least in the position he's in, and make sure he doesn't pick up any damage, and then just try to pick off each car ahead of him, relatively quickly, so he can get, a good result still. The result he should be aiming for is 2nd. Piastri, as long as nothing goes wrong for him, Piastri should win the race today comfortably. So the only thing Lando can do at that point is finish in 2nd. But whether he will finish there again, it's a completely different story. Laurie Rastogi says Tsunoda was respectable. Yeah, I thought he did a good job in a tricky car to drive, and should get his first points for the Red Bull team today. Laurie saying Alonso has got it. P11 in the 8th or ninth fastest car at Japan was a very good drive. It was a good drive. Maybe very good. You could argue that. Alonso, I know, after the last race, said it was one of the best drives of his career and that he could not have got anything more out of himself or the car. And he ended up only, was it 2 or 3 seconds behind Behrman? So, yeah, you could argue it was a very good drive, but it's just hard to tell when you're in such a bad car. Laurie says Stroll was 6 tenths off Alonso in Q1, still not good. No. I mean, I still like to be fair to Stroll because, I mean, that car is bad, but yeah, Lance has gone back to the bad old, you know, the bad old Lance, let's say. KH says Bortoletto just need to get experience, see if he can get a better seat. I mean, you have to remember next year that team he's in will be Audi. So, and Audi, yeah, they've never been in Formula One before, so we don't know exactly how they're going to do. There's no historical baseline with them. But you would think, being Audi would give him a decent chance of having some decent results in the future. So I think he's in the right spot for the time being. This year he's got no pressure on his shoulders because the car is awful, and he's not expected to score points really ever. So yeah, he's got the luck, I think, of having absolutely no pressure, and has a very experienced, good driver to learn from for this year and next year as well, because I think that driver lineup will just remain the same for next year. So yeah, I think Bortoletto, I think he's in a good spot going forward, and I don't think really, if there are any fans of him out there, I don't think really there needs to be any panic. I mean, yeah, for the moment the car is not good, but I think that actually helps him in a way for this year, like I said, because he won't have that pressure of having to deliver. Because at least with, and this is why Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, I think, has been quite impressive, because that car is good and he has had the pressure to deliver results. And at least in one race weekend, he has delivered. In qualifying, Hadjar has been, I'd say, pretty good so far. So, it would be a lot harder if he was in a car that was expected to be scoring points quite a few times in the course of a season. As Nib earlier saying, hope you aren't watching the football whilst doing this. Luckily, Chelsea are not on TV here. They're showing the Liverpool game. So I've just been watching that whilst doing this. Yeah, Chelsea are not on TV here, which is probably a good thing given the scoreline. Um, KH says seems Mercedes is getting better. Can they challenge McLaren? Absolutely, they can. They've got a good car. They just need to get better. They just need to get some, pretty much. I would say it's similar to McLaren last year. McLaren started the year with a good car. They just needed that upgrade to push them forward and to get them into a position where they could, win races. And obviously that helped them really to win the Constructors' Championship. That's what Mercedes need. They just need that one upgrade that pushes them forward And I think George Russell will start winning races. And I think, and I'm going to hold off on saying this fully at the minute, because I want to see what he does today, and if he does get the result today that he really should get. But definitely you could argue at this point that George Russell is the dark horse for the Drivers' Championship. So, yeah, we will keep our eyes firmly peeled on Mercedes and Russell. Right, let's find some other comments here if I can. Astro saying a lot of potential left in almost all of the cars. I think with so much of the season still to come, be interesting to see which teams keep developing it for this year versus focusing on next year. Example, Sauber reckon they've already written this year off too, waiting to become Audi. Aston Martin too, I suspect, except they are not becoming Audi. Yeah, I think Aston Martin and Sauber may as well just concentrate on next year's car, because even if they improve this car that those two teams currently have, it's only going to get them into a position where they're scoring points, like a few points, which, I mean, those teams don't care about that sort of thing. I mean, Sauber do, but Audi definitely won't. So, and plus, remember next year, obviously at the start of the year, we have no idea at the start of next year who is going to, start the year with the best car. But there is definitely an advantage to be had if you finish last in the championship this year. Let's say Sauber finish last in the championship, which is likely. I'm not saying it will happen, but it is likely. If they start next year with a car that's not that far from the very front of the field, and they've got the most wind tunnel time out of any team for the first half of next year because they finished last in the championship this year, that could be the difference in turning them from a midfield team into a front-running team in the second half of 2026. And we could then have the possibility of Hulkenberg and Bortoleto finishing on the podium or winning races if they really get the development right. So there is, and again with Aston Martin, if they finish last in the championship, which I think is still possible given how bad their car is, and given how they are probably the least likely to develop this car compared to any other team. Yeah, Aston Martin, what do you call it? Let's say they, and obviously Adrian Newey is currently at the team base designing next year's car. Let's say Honda get the power unit, not absolutely bang on, but it's providing enough power to be competitive. And then Adrian Newey designs a beast of a car. Then Aston Martin, they could start next year with a front-running car and have the most time to develop out of any other team for the first half of the year, which would then give them a massive advantage going into the second half of the season. Meaning that, Fernando Alonso could then have a legit chance at the championship. So again, there is and with this system of who's last in the championship or lower down gets more wind tunnel time, it is sad that it has done this, and it has created a bit of an incentive to be, if you're not going to be good in a season, it gives you a bit of an incentive to basically tank and be terrible on purpose, and use that to your advantage for the following year. So that's not great, but that's the way it is, and I think in the long term at least benefits Formula One. There are two teams though to look out for this year that I think should and will develop their cars a lot more than, say, the front running teams this year. because there's nothing to lose from doing it this year. And I think Racing Bulls and Williams are those two teams. Racing Bulls and Williams have the two best midfield cars. I know Alpine are where they are on the grid, but I think Racing Bulls and Williams are still the two best midfield teams. And they have got, for the first half of this year, a lot more time in the wind tunnel compared to the front teams. If they really center in on developing this year's car and give it absolutely everything, then in the second half of this year, you could see Racing Bulls and Williams fighting for podiums. And that could lead to a higher championship position than they've had for a few years. Remember, Racing Bulls, for years, back when they were AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso, have been searching for that elusive 5th place in the championship. So many years they finished 6th, have been so close and really have deserved to finish in the top 5, but it's, been took away from them through either bad luck or just a team ahead of them who would just have a lot more money and better drivers. It could be worth, especially for Racing Bulls, who it doesn't really matter if they're not that quick next season because they're not really supposed to be a team that's going out there to win. That's not what they're set up to do. So yeah, for Racing Bulls, why not just develop this car to the absolute max and see where it gets you? And maybe by the second half of the year, you've got a front-running car that challenges for podiums and even wins. And then maybe you can get some podiums and even a win. So it's definitely worth a try. Because next year, again, Racing Bulls, nobody cares where Racing Bulls are going to be next year. They're not that sort of team. And of course, remember, Cadillac will be on the grid next year. Cadillac F1. And I believe, am I right in saying that Cadillac will have pretty much the most wind tunnel development time for the first half of next season because they're a new team? I think that'll be the case. So watch out for them as well. If they start the year with a car that's probably going to be at the back, if it's not too far away, though, from the, say, front of the midfield, watch out for them. They could really, mix things up going forward. One bit of news, by the way, which I'm happy to see, is that the proposed return to V10s has been scrapped. Now, before you guys all get angry and say, Chaz, what the fuck are you on about? We all want V10s to return. I do. It's just the year they were planning it for was wrong. They need to give the 2026 regulations a chance to work. And as we've seen with this current regulations we've got, the ground effect era, these regulations started in 2022. We've not really had that many rule changes. We had that big technical directive in the first year that was the only real major change that we've had since 2022. But since 2022, the regulations pretty much have been the same. And now look, in the 4th year of these regulations, look how close the field is. So what we need is those 2026 regulations need to take us until the end of the decade or the very start of the next decade before we start majorly changing the engines or the cars. Because the 2026 regulations will not work. They will not allow for close racing and close championship battles if you change the regulations in a big way after 2 years. It won't work. They need to leave the regulations alone until at least 2030. So I have no problem if they want to bring V10s in for 2030 or 2031, but not in 2028. That's too soon. They need to give the 2026 regs, the room it needs to, again, over time, the field will get closer. Next year, the field, it will spread apart quite a bit. We will probably get one team dominating over the rest, like we had not last year, but a couple years ago with Red Bull. But if you leave the regulations alone long enough, as we've seen with this set of regulations and with the last set, back in 2021, the field will close up. And eventually we'll get multiple different winners, close championship battles between different teams, and so on and so forth. And with the wind tunnel rules we've got in terms of the slowest or the worst teams having more time in the wind tunnel to develop compared to the front runners, that also helps quite a bit. And that regulation has worked a lot in these last in these last few years. I mean, McLaren are a clear example of that. So, yeah. Right, let's keep going through these comments. But yeah, good topic there, Astro. Astro also saying, I don't think Perez will drive an F1 again. I think he'll definitely be in the Cadillac car next year. It's heavily rumored, and I don't think Perez is done in Formula One. I think he wants to go out on his own terms. He still feels as though he's got a bit more to give, and maybe he does. After seeing what Lawson and Tsunoda have done in the Red Bull so far this year, you could argue that he does have quite a bit more to give, and he would be a really good addition for Cadillac. Not just the sponsorship money he brings, which is a lot, but also he's very experienced. We have to remember this. He's been in Formula One, in and around Formula One for like 14 years. So he would be a fantastic addition, especially if one of the other drivers is going to be a rookie like, I don't know, Colton Herta or someone like that. Let me just scroll down the chat. See what you guys are saying. Will F1 says Norris needs a complete rocket ship to be able to win anything. Yeah, mostly true, I think you'd have to say. Looney Classic says, brace yourself for a boring championship next year. Someone will dominate and other teams will take 3 seasons to catch up. Not sure if it'll be 3 seasons, but yeah, next year it is probably going to be worse than this year in terms of, different winners and having different, multiple different drivers fighting for the championship. This year, we could legit have 3 or 4 proper championship contenders. I would be very surprised if that was the case next year. Next year, we'll be lucky to have 2 championship contenders. So, yeah. Because it always happens with a new set of regs. You get one team who hits the jackpot and they run away with it for at least a couple years until the others catch up. Red Bull basically did that with this ground effect era. Yeah, Ferrari started off well, but they didn't carry it through. Red Bull found, you remember, and we did a lot of analysis on this back in the day. I say back in the day, it was only 3 years ago, but Red Bull found a superior side pod design solution, and Ferrari took too long to get on that wavelength. And by the time they did, they were miles off the pace. And Red Bull were then the standard until McLaren then became the standard around this time, or just after this time last year. Let's see some other comments here. Vincent says, I don't see Russell as a champion either. I mean, he's never been in a championship battle, so we need to, wait and see as to what, is he going to be one of those drivers that rises when the pressure increases, like a Lewis Hamilton? Or is he going to be a Lando Norris who just falls apart when the pressure steps up? We will have to find out. Astro says Max has an ego that won't let him face a serious rival in equal cars. Lewis faced Alonso, Nico, Jensen, now Leclerc. Max has had Gasly, Perez, Albon, and Lawson in the second car. I agree, and I see what you're saying. Yeah, he's not had a competitive teammate for quite a long time. But I think going into this next era, if let's say Mercedes, the big rumor is that Mercedes have currently a step ahead when it comes to these new engines we've got coming in for next year. I think Max will willingly will be absolutely fine with having a competitive teammate as long as he's in a good enough car to win the championship, because I think Max backs himself to win the championship no matter what. Plus, I think Max knows that it would add to his legacy if let's say he joins Mercedes and he partners Russell or Antonelli, and Russell and Antonelli prove to be, around the same level and both elite drivers. If Max then beats them to the championship 3 or 4 times in a row, then Max will probably end up going down as the greatest driver of all time. When if Max continues winning championships easily in a Red Bull with no competition, then yeah, it doesn't quite add to his legacy as much. So I don't think Max would be that opposed to having a competitive teammate as long as he had a good enough car. And that's why I think Max, I know there are lots of rumours that Max is going to leave Red Bull at the end of this year. I don't think he is going to do that because 2 reasons. One, he wants to see next year who does have the best car and who doesn't, so that when he does leave Red Bull, he can make the logical decision to go to whoever, whether it's Aston Martin or Mercedes or whoever, or even McLaren. But also, let's say Red Bull next year have the best car. That would benefit him massively because he is still very comfortable within that team. And remember, Red Bull is built around him. He's been at that team for almost 10 years. That entire team is built around him, very much like it was for Michael Schumacher when he was at Ferrari. And that's why Schumacher decided to retire in 2006 instead of partnering Kimi Räikkönen, because he saw that Luca Di Montezemolo was trying to take the team away from him and build the team around someone else. And Michael I don't think Michael had the stamina at that age to then have to fight against a prime Kimi Räikkönen when he had the team again built around him for 10 years. So with Max, I think, again, preferably if Red Bull next year have the best car, he'll stay there because it's very easy for him to stay there because, again, the team is built around him. It's his team. Everything is for him there. When if he goes to Mercedes, yeah, they'll love to have him. Toto's a big fan, but he will have a competitive teammate and things might not be as easy at Mercedes. It might not be as comfortable as it was at Red Bull. So I think that's why he will want to wait at least until the end of next season before making his decision. Let me see if I can find some other comments here. Luna Classic says Max is good, but he would explode alongside Russell. Russell was too arrogant and too quick to defer to Max. He will go toe to toe with him. It would be very interesting, put it that way, to see Max and George as teammates. Especially if they were fighting for the championship in a car that was, if it was like a Hamilton-Rosberg situation, that would be very interesting. Because I think Russell is definitely better than Lando Norris and would be a tougher rival for Max than Lando would be. But again, whether who would win that fight, you'd put your money on Verstappen, but I think Russell is better than a lot of people think he is. And Looney Classic says Max will beat both Alonso and Lewis right now. Two legends are past their prime. Yeah. The only drivers I think you could put alongside Max that could compete with him legitimately is Leclerc and Russell. The only other driver I would say is Antonelli, but we haven't seen Antonelli develop into his prime form yet. So we need to wait with Antonelli to see what he's like when he gets to his prime. And then maybe he would be another one who would be close enough to Max. But yeah, if you put Max and Lando, for example, in the same team, Max would absolutely destroy Lando. Which is why Lando made the very smart decision to not join Red Bull a couple years ago when they offered it to him. Because he knows deep down that Max is clearly superior to him. And if they were teammates, Max would beat him in almost every single race weekend. Max would make Lando look like a slightly better Sergio Perez. That's what Max would make Lando look like. And I'm not saying Lando is that bad. Again, in qualifying, when he's at his best, he can be very, very quick. But in race trim, Lando is miles away from the level of Max Verstappen. Miles away. Not even close. And that's why Max really comfortably won the championship last year. If it's down to him and Lando this year, Max will win again, even in a slower car. Because Max is just that much better. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do quickly, so make sure to keep getting the likes up, by the way. We're on 47 or 48 likes now. Let's try and get up to, say, 70 plus likes if we can in the next half an hour or so. We've got, 40 minutes until the race. It really has zipped by this stream so far. I'm just going to quickly do a quick roundup of the teams and how I think their race will go today and what they should be aiming for. And also, strategically, what certain teams could try to do to enhance their results. Because obviously there are certain drivers out of position on the grid, such as the driver we were just talking about. So, we will start with McLaren. And yeah, Piastri on pole, like I said, as long as he leads the first lap, he will win the race. He will be fine. For Lando Norris, I think what McLaren should do is utilize their advantage of having better tyre wear, managing the tyres better. I think they really should use that to their advantage and try and go quite a bit longer into the race. I don't think they should try a one-stop race. I don't think that's going to work for them if they try that. But I think going, let's say if a lot of cars pit around lap 14, 15, might be worth pitting around lap 18 or so, just to go a few laps longer to have fresher tyres then for the rest of the race. I think that would be worth trying, just to help Lando even more get onto the podium and maybe even second position. So yeah, watch out for that. I think that is something McLaren will probably try to just help Lando even more. But McLaren should win today and get both cars at least on the podium. For Red Bull, I think with Max, given his demeanour, just how fed up he is with the car this weekend, I think he's up for trying anything really on strategy. He won't go for a one-stop strategy. There's no way he'll agree to that. I do think, though, like Lando, he will try to run a bit longer into the race. Maybe even go till about lap 20 before making his first pit stop, just to help him in the second half of the race have fresher tyres and better pace, and maybe come back at the field that way. But it's going to be a tricky race because that Red Bull just isn't handling well. Tsunoda is in 10th place. He's done very well to get into the top 10, but not really sure he can make much progress from there. And again, a difficult car to drive. Ferrari have got Leclerc on the front row. Honestly, I would be super aggressive with Ferrari, with Leclerc's strategy today. I would be pitting Leclerc not super early for his first stop. I would start Leclerc on the soft compound tyre because if he can get into the lead at turn 1, that would really help his race. Doesn't mean he's going to win. He's not going to win. Ferrari do not have the pace to win. They will need a lot of luck to go their way if they're going to win this race. But if he gets into the lead at turn 1, again, that would help his race in terms of keep him in the good positions for longer. But what I would do is pit him, have him be one of the earliest to pit out of the top few cars, say lap 12, go on to a set of mediums and then say do a 20 lap, maybe just over 20 lap stint on that compound, and then pit early again onto a set of mediums to finish the race. And just be aggressive on the strategy because they don't have the race pace really to win, and I don't think they have the race pace really to be on the podium. So they've got to try something strategically to help. And I think being aggressive might just be the way forward to help in this Grand Prix. So that's what I would do. For Lewis Hamilton, we saw a week ago he started on the hard compound tyre to try something different. In the end, it didn't work. I think, though, starting on a harder compound might actually pay off better in this race than it did a week ago. So maybe Hamilton starts on the medium on the hard compound tyre, and maybe that really helps him later in the race. But yeah, watch out for Hamilton. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for an alternate strategy. For Mercedes, I think they should really just go for the basic, simple strategy. I don't think they really need to go aggressive or really go a bit longer into the race necessarily. I think if they just go for the bog standard two-stop strategy, I think they should be absolutely fine. The car is quick enough to have at least one car on the podium, maybe both cars if Lando Norris is struggling today in the second McLaren. So yeah, they just need to make sure they don't leave it too long before pitting or pitting too early, and just make sure they pit at the ideal times, and they should be absolutely fine. Mercedes have got a good car. That is clear to see. Aston Martin, awful car. Doesn't really matter what happens to them. With Alpine and the Alpine of Gasly, one thing we have seen this season is that Alpine has been quite a bit better with its race pace compared to its qualifying pace. Now, that would be incredible if that happened today, because Gasly would probably have podium level pace at that point. But he should have the pace to finish in the top 10. What do they decide to do, though? Should they go aggressive to keep themselves in a good position? Or should they maybe go a bit longer to help have some fresher tyres and just better pace later on in the Grand Prix? I think really, like I said with Mercedes, I think they should just go for the bog standard two-stop strategy and not go any early or later than what you should do, really. They've got good pace, and that pace is good enough no matter really when they pit for the first pit stop. it's good enough to get him in the top 10. So that's, I think, what they should try and do. With Jack Doohan in 11th, I would start him on the soft compound tyre to try and get him into the top 10 and try and get him racing for some points. And then maybe try and be a bit more aggressive with him on strategy. And maybe that'll help him get in the points as well. But strategically, I'm not sure what they can really do to help Gasly's race even more than his qualifying position has helped. Haas, I think you will probably see them as well do a bog standard two-stopper. I don't think you're going to see them really going that much longer than other teams. I think with Oliver Behrman, though, actually, they probably will go for maybe even a one-stop race. And I think you could see Behrman start on the hard compound tyre. Like he did, remember, in China, started on the hard, ran very long into the race, and ended up finishing in the points. Maybe that's what he'll do. We'll see. But I think with Ocon, I think they'll probably just start him on the medium and pit him around the normal times anyway. But Behrman could very well be on an alternate strategy. Racing Bulls, they've got more pace in the car. I don't think they need to try anything funky on strategy, really. They've got more pace in there and just need to show it. So we'll see what they have in store for us today. Points is possible, but they might need a bit of luck to get in the top 10 because that top 10 is looking very strong. Williams, I've got Carlos Sainz in 8th. I think they're going to have a good race with Sainz. For Alex Albon, we have seen Albon in the Williams go a bit longer in races before pitting. And I think he will definitely do that today. I don't think he'll start on the hard tyre. I think what he'll probably do is start on the medium and then probably go until lap 20, 21, maybe just over that before pitting. And then be very quick in the second half of the race in what is a quick car anyway in that midfield pack. So watch out for Alex Albon. But yeah, Williams definitely will get points today. And for Sauber, I think like Aston Martin, they're too slow for any strategy to really help them. But a reminder, here is my race prediction for this Bahrain Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri, I think, will win the Grand Prix comfortably from George Russell 2nd, Lando Norris 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Antonelli 5th, Verstappen 6th, Gasly 7th, Sainz 8th, Hamilton 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda will round out the top 10, getting his first points for Red Bull. But we'll come back to this screen, and I'll get the timer back on screen in just a moment. Let me just wait for the next minute to tick over. As in a moment, guys, I will be bringing Niblo on, who of course will be joining me on commentary today for this Bahrain Grand Prix. His football team is just about hanging on for dear life. So there you go. And one more thing I am going to do is just post the link of the stream out one more time. As actually Nib has just sent me something that Red Bull have changed the brakes on Max Verstappen's car, and no penalty applies for that change there. So yeah, that is at least good for Red Bull. But yeah, just going to post this link out for the stream, and then I'll bring Nib on to get his thoughts ahead of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Come join us here to watch along the race in Bahrain. And there you go. So, let me just quickly adjust a couple things, and then, yeah, we'll bring him on. And I'm sure he is in a good mood, not just because of the football, but really for this race, he's in a good mood because obviously his man is on pole and really should win this Grand Prix. Right. Let me just quickly, like I said, adjust a couple things. And yeah, he should be ready. Right, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, there you are. How are you?
I am pretty decent. How are you?
Not so great. Looking at the scores right now. Um, yeah, I see. We're still 2-1 down. I can see you're hanging on for dear life in this game. Uh, and still, was it 1-0? Just
Yeah.
for the moment. But obviously, I know you're absolutely delighted at the grid we've got here. Oscar Piastri on pole for the second time this season. I know you didn't watch qualifying live, but your thoughts on Piastri's pole lap and just the weekend he's had so far?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I felt very comfortable going to sleep knowing that he would get pole, and I wasn't let down whatsoever. Um, when Russell put in that lap time, like, oh, that's a pretty good lap. But Oscar had it quite comfortably in the end, and of course, it makes it even more sweeter when Pando Porras just absolutely bottles it.
Yeah, absolutely disastrous lap from Lando in the end. He had, I think, the only sector on that final lap that he did a personal best was the final sector. The first two sectors he just got horribly wrong, and that's what led to him ending up sixth on the grid. And with Lando, we've seen um, a lot online since qualifying of him beating himself up and saying, really criticizing himself a lot. Now, it has been said that he is quite hard on himself when he doesn't get the result he should have got, but do you think a lot of Lando's criticisms are justified, or do you think he's being maybe a bit too hard on himself about it?
I mean, it might be true what he's saying about his own performances. I'm particularly saying his own performances because some of his comments that the car is like not good is quite comical. And like this gimmick that he's been playing all weekend, saying that the car isn't the fastest car, and then Piastri puts on pole by a tenth, and I'm calling it 2/10. It's quite funny, but it's been quite clear to see that Norris is probably too harsh on himself, and it can get him really bogged down. Um, so it certainly doesn't help him. That's for sure. And I mean, people even like before they McLaren had the fastest car last year. I remember Rosberg said it on commentary quite heavily one time, and many other pundits as well. So yeah, it's certainly not helping Lando.
No, it's not. And as like you said, he's had a very um he's been very mouthy, let's say, to the media about multiple things, and like you said about the how good the car is, and he's been saying about how the car isn't actually that good, and like you say, Piastri shows that actually the car, even though yeah Piastri delivered a great lap, it is the best car on the grid. There was also that other comment. What was he said, if Max drove our car he'd be surprised or something like that, he'd be shocked. It was something
Yeah,
like
he would
that.
he wouldn't be smiling getting out the car. That's what it was. Something to that effect.
That is just absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. So yeah, and I think with Lando, like, yeah, he is too hard on himself, but I think he also he is a very online person compared to a lot of the other drivers. A lot of the other drivers, I don't think, give a flying fuck what anyone on the internet thinks about their performances. But Lando, because obviously he's always been very online for years, I think he sees a lot of the criticism and feels a lot of it, and just turns in on himself, especially when these bad performances happen, and he is just falling apart, really. Since that Grand Prix in Melbourne. I know last weekend in Japan, yeah, he finished and qualified second, so at least it was a consistent weekend. It was still uh, a bad result because McLaren should not have been losing to Max at Suzuka. Since that win in Melbourne, Lando has just it does feel like he has fallen apart mostly. And I mean, this is only race 4 of the season. We've still got what 20 odd races to go, so God knows how it's going to go going forward. But yeah, he is mentally not in a good place with his confidence at the minute, and that is absolutely affecting his performance. We know, at his best in qualifying, he is able to deliver stunning pace, but he just lately just not able to do it. And I think a lot of that is pressure, not just from outside, but from internally as well. As you said, George Russell did an absolutely fantastic lap. Leclerc did a great lap. Obviously, Pierre Gasly, what a lap from him. And he's 4th on the grid. With that Mercedes, though, it shouldn't be quick enough to fight Piastri, obviously. But do you think they've got a good chance of a double podium, given where Lando and Max are on the grid?
You would think so, especially with the tire wear that's that's probably going to be around today. I mean, the teams still aren't sure whether or not it's going to be a 2-stop or a 1-stop. We have said this for the past 2 races, but it's probably leaning more towards a 2-stop compared to any other Grand Prix so far this season. So if tire wear becomes a factor, you think McLaren quite comfortably, while Norris quite comfortably goes flying up the grid. Because I mean, we saw in that FP3 session when temps are just a little bit higher, the pace of that car when it's hot compared to everyone else is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm not too sure how things are going to go in early on in the race for Norris. He just has to get a clean start and and gain a few positions. Um, just keeping it clean mainly and not losing positions, and then the pace of that car should stand out, and he should comfortably get through because he can actually overtake at this circuit.
Absolutely. And like you say, it just needs to stay clean, really, on that first lap because that McLaren is very quick. And yeah, one last thing I think we'll get on to with this grid we've got is obviously Max Verstappen. I saw you sent me a thing that the Red Bull have swapped out his brakes, and I've not received a penalty for that, which is great for him. Um, how bad, just how bad was the handling of his car? Did you watch the full qualifying or did you just watch the highlights?
I saw was it that moment in Q2? Was it Q2 where through turn 2 and 3?
Big snap of
But
oversteer.
yeah, I quickly skimmed through most of Q1 and Q2 just when they're actually on their hot laps. So I did catch everything, but yeah, I mean, and Max was complaining about it. He just couldn't do anything with that car, and I mean, I think he said he said after quali that they've tried absolutely everything. They've turned upside down, and there's nothing that's working with the car. So yeah, I mean, maybe the brake change will improve things, but yeah, probably won't be a great race for Red Bull.
Yeah, it's not looking great for them. We'll have to see how the brakes are for him. For this Grand Prix. Hopefully, from his point of view, a lot better, and then he'll be able to make some progress through the pack. But yeah, for the race, as we've got just under 20 minutes left now. What is your top 3 for this Grand Prix? What are you going for?
I'm gonna go for Piastri to win the Grand Prix. I mean, that's not doubting that. I think Russell will finish in second, and then third. Third is tricky. Um, Third, I'll go Norris. Sure, he should be getting a podium with that car.
Yeah. I mean, if it was hard to overtake here, you would say probably not. But like you say, this is one of the easiest tracks to overtake, so he should be able to still come through. And if he doesn't get on the podium, it's a shockingly bad result in that car. And yeah, I've gone for the same top three. It will be close-ish, I think, between Russell and Norris towards the end. But yeah, Lando has to be at least on the podium, especially if Max is finishing in 5th or 6th place, to at least gain a few points on him. And obviously keep the championship lead. Remember, if Lando was to finish where he's starting from, and Oscar finishes where he's starting from, Piastri takes the lead of the championship. So, yeah, Lando has got to be on the podium. No doubt about it. And we'll see what he can do. Obviously, guys, let us know in the live chat and the poll, obviously, running in the chat as well. Let us know, what do you think is going to happen in this Grand Prix? Who will win? Will it be Piastri, or will it be a surprise winner? Or, let us know also what you think the podium will, how the podium will turn out to be. Turbo Pass says, I think Max will be there. Brakes are super important. Red Bull is still great when the car is working. Well, as I said, looking at the sector times from qualifying, there is more potential in that car than I think what was shown yesterday. So, but it's, if those issues have gone away, then great. Then Max maybe can get in there and fight for the podium. But until we see whether that has gone away or not, we'll have to find out. As thankfully, I've just seen Chelsea have equalised. Only another 10 minutes or so to get a winner. Let's see if I can find any more comments. Ronan in the chat, good to see you. Says, hi, Chazza, I'm back. I'm struggling to motivate myself to watch this sport anymore, but I'll give it a go. I know a lot of the races can be still a bit boring, especially compared to how it used to be years ago. What do you call it? Yeah, the races this season have not maybe been as great as we were hoping for. Obviously, Melbourne was pretty good, but the last couple have been, not so great. But we still, still a very open championship on the driver's side. So I think if you give it a bit of time, things will really start getting good. Especially once we get to the European season, we'll get to some tracks where we can actually race. But yeah, you've just seen it, haven't you? The that's quite unfortunate, that goal. Hello to Yanni as well. Rook saying, why did YouTube block Astra's message saying Nicky Lauda? No idea. I can't see where that message is. But yeah, that's weird. And a few people talking about Jackie Stewart. And yeah, as you sent me, absolutely brilliant to see Stewart for charity doing a couple laps in his old Tyrrell around the Bahrain track at, how old is he? 80? 81 years old, something like that.
I think he's 83, actually.
Let me have a look. He's 85. Wow.
85.
He's 86 in 2 months. So yeah, absolutely mental, and it's still great that he's still going. He still does that the F1 tours thing pretty much every race weekend as well. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant that he's still got the passion for it. Will Lando finish fourth today? Should finish higher than that, really. Dave Smithson says Oscar, Russell, Norris for the top three. And yeah, Rook's saying it was 1973 Tyrrell he was driving, which was his final car that he drove. Obviously, won the championship in 73, his third, and then retired. At, I think he was, 20... No, about 33, 34, I think, when he retired. Let's see. Will have won. Yeah, I was just waiting in case you were going to scream. Will have won saying Prime Ralph Schumacher is better than Lando Norris. That actually might be a decent comparison, to be honest. That might actually be one of the that might be one of the best comparisons. But yeah, we'll see how Lando gets on today. Again, we've had plenty of criticism for him, but still has plenty of chances to make up for, especially this poor qualifying that he's had as the national anthem is just playing at the track. One more thing I just wanted to get your thoughts on, Nib, is this the teams have projected the return to V10s in 2028. Good thing, bad thing, or do you think that we're never going to get V10s? And just what your general thoughts on that decision?
I did hear you talk about this briefly, and I was going to roast you in the chat, but I decided against it. No, I mean, obviously, it was very unrealistic for them to come back in come back next year. It would have been way too late. I mean, there's a possibility for 2030, and I mean V10s coming back would be so good because that's what F1 is to me, and I'm sure to a lot of the chat in here. Quite frankly, it's about loud engines, beautiful loud engines playing beautiful music. But just whether it just let's see if you can get the constructors signed up to that. I don't know if it's quite possible in these times, but who knows? Let's see. I think probably ultimately the right decision for it not to be next year, but hopefully 2030.
I think 2030 a lot more realistic, because at least that it gives the teams or the manufacturers time to prepare for that. We will see. I mean, I know I have personally like an older fan base here in terms of the guys and girls that all watch here. And obviously to us, smaller cars and louder engines that's what Formula One was when it was at its best, and that's what we want. So hopefully we get back to that. The cars are smaller next year than these ones, but still not. It's still not enough, but at least it's moving in the right direction. I mean, there's only so much you can do because, I think like you said last week, because of the safety cell and all of that stuff. So moving in the right direction, but we will see what happens on that front. Woden says we need to go back to V8 or V10. The cars would be lighter and smaller, sound better, and provide better racing. Renewable fuel is the future. Again, it's definitely something that could happen, but we will see. What happens, say, around the start of the next decade. Let's see if I can find any of the comments quick. Yeah, Kelly Cook saying Jackie's last race was Canada, 1973, and retired in practice because obviously his teammate, Francois Sever, was killed in practice for the US Grand Prix. And that's why he didn't bother doing that final race, which I think was at Watkins Glen, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. It's a sad end still. Ronan says, I prefer V8s, but I'm happy either way rather than these vacuum cleaners. They're not as bad as they were back in 2014. When you go back and listen to those 2014 cars, you can really tell how bad they were. Like, when you listen to how they are now, it was remarkable just how bad some of them sounded.
You could generally have a conversation as the cars went past on the pit straight and like not have difficulty hearing the person next to you. Whereas that's not the case now. But yeah, I want my ears to be hurting after a session, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I went to, it was a Spanish Grand Prix of 2014, so only just into that V6 era. And I remember, like you said, you could easily talk to someone as the cars went past, but when the GP2 cars came out, my God, I thought I was going to die. They were that loud. Because I was stood at like turn 3 as they were like accelerating out of turn 3, and yeah, the noise difference compared to the V8s and those what is now F2 compared to the V6 hybrids in the F1, it was unbelievable, the difference. But yeah, they are a lot better now than it was back then, 2014-15, but it will never be as good as it was back in the V10 V8 era. But I think, given how long we've got left, we will finish up this poll in the chat that's had nearly 1,000 votes. Yeah, 836 votes. And I asked you guys who will win the Bahrain Grand Prix. 54% of you went for Oscar Piastri, 22% for Leclerc, 14% for Norris, and 8% for Russell. We will see who wins this Bahrain Grand Prix. And I'll just read out a couple more comments, and then we'll get on to some final stats and obviously your grid for this race. Ronan says, also, I can't believe these engines have lasted so long. 20 million per engine, so ridiculously expensive too. Yeah, well, that's why we lost Caterham and Manor. I mean, Manor stayed around a bit longer than Caterham, but still, it was just too much, way too much for them. Crystal Racing saying that's why F2 started using turbos to avoid upstage in F1. I remember back then there was fear that the F2 cars were going to be quicker than the F1 cars around certain tracks in 2014. I remember people talking about that, but I always thought it was absolutely ridiculous that was even a possibility. And thankfully, it was never a possibility. Anyway, let's get into, firstly, your championship standings. Still important at this point of the season. Lando Norris leading by just 1 point on the driver's side. Max Verstappen is second. Piastri third, 13 points behind. This is definitely a chance for Piastri to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. George Russell in fourth, only 17 points behind. Big chance for him to close the gap as well. Antonelli fifth. He's only 32 points behind. Leclerc sixth. Albon seventh. Hamilton eighth. Ocon still in ninth. And Lance Stroll still in P10. And then on the constructor side, McLaren 36 points clear of Mercedes. Red Bull in third. All of Red Bull's points have been scored by Max Verstappen. Yet they're still only 14 points behind Mercedes. Ferrari in 4th, Williams in 5th, Haas in 6th, Aston Martin 7th, Racing Bulls up to 8th after the last Grand Prix, Sauber in 9th, Alpine 10th, and still pointless, but probably not after today. Let's go through the top teams, though, and some key stats regarding them. McLaren have never won the Bahrain Grand Prix, and they are looking to get their first win here today. They got the first ever pole in Bahrain yesterday. Can they get the first win? Their best result here is 2nd from 2007. That was with Lewis Hamilton that weekend. Last year, it was 6th and 8th in the race. Obviously, the first race of last year. They're a lot better this year, though. Red Bull obviously won last year's Bahrain Grand Prix and have won twice here in Bahrain in the last 10 years. And yeah, last year, not only did they win, it was a 1-2. How things have changed, though. They are now 7th and 10th on the grid. Ferrari won here last 3 years ago with Charles Leclerc. Obviously a 1-2 that day for Ferrari. They've won 3 times in Bahrain since 2015. One of the best records of any team in the last 10 years. And they did finish a respectable 3rd and 4th in last year's Grand Prix. Wouldn't be that bad of a result today, but really Ferrari for their championship need to win. And for Mercedes, their last win in Bahrain was 4 years ago with Lewis Hamilton in the first race of that season. Mercedes have won 5 times in Bahrain in the last 10 years. Last year, they only finished 5th and 7th. This year should be better. And now let's get on to your starting grid for the Bahrain Grand Prix. On the front row, Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. The second row, it is George Russell and Pierre Gasly. The third row, Kimi Antonelli and Lando Norris. Ex-teammates from Toro Rosso 10 years ago, Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz line up on the fourth row. Meanwhile, completing the top 10, Lewis Hamilton is won in multiple times, and Yuki Tsunoda starting in the top 10 for the first time in a Red Bull. Just outside of the top 10, the 2 rookies, Jack Doohan and Isaac Hadjar. 13th and 14th, ex-teammates from Alpine, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. 15th and 16th, Alex Albon and Nico Hulkenberg. Penultimate row of the grid, Liam Lawson and Gabriel Bortoleto. And the back row, Lance Stroll and the Haas of Oliver Behrman. And that is your grid. 57-lap race it will be. And we'll find out in a moment who is starting on what tyre. I think we'll get quite a few on the soft tyre. And then probably a few on the medium and maybe a couple on the hard compound. But let's hope this is at least better entertainment-wise than last week's Grand Prix. As we are looking at the visor cam of Lando Norris, who needs a big result today. And there is, on the TV broadcast, Charles Leclerc getting his tyre blankets removed. And there is Oscar Piastri starting on pole for the second time in 2025. And if Piastri was to win today, he would have the most wins for the season so far. All 3 of Verstappen, Piastri and Norris have all got 1 win respectively for the actual races. Of course, Lewis Hamilton won the sprint in China. And this is absolutely crucial for Piastri and his championship bid. As the formation lap about to begin. Rook saying everybody on softs except for Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Lawson, and Bortoleto on mediums. Interesting that. Leclerc on the medium on the front row. I thought he would have been going for the soft. As there you go. Formation lap begins. What do you make of that? Leclerc on the medium compared to Piastri. That's quite a bit different, from what we were expecting.
Yeah, interesting to say the least, but it feels like they're doing the old Red Bull strat where you just start on the opposite tyre no matter what, just to try something different.
And we'll see for them if that does indeed work out. But yeah, it theoretically won't help them off the start line, but maybe they'll get a bit lucky. Who knows? Let me just show this quickly. Obviously, this tyre information is not entirely correct yet. I'm just trying to get it all correct. As Rooks said in the chat, everyone on the soft except for Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Lawson, and Bortoletto. So only 2 runners in the top 10 starting on the medium, and it's both Ferrari cars. Leclerc did do his long run on Friday on the medium, so they do have good data, presumably, from that compound. As the field coming around to start this race. Let me just do the last couple of drivers. And yeah, Piastri just coming through the final corner now on this formation lap. So there you go. 5 drivers on the mediums. We'll see how that fares for them. And maybe could be a game changer for Ferrari. That's Piastri and Leclerc now doing their final burnouts. Zach Brown there looking quite tense. He knows that McLaren have to win this Grand Prix, especially after the last one where they were surprisingly beaten. As here's a look at Lewis Hamilton, who's been awful really all weekend. He needs desperately a good race today, purely for his confidence rather than any championship aspirations, which at this point are gone, given how far away he is already. As the top 10 just about lining up. As there is just a few more cars to line up. Obviously, the Aston Martin and the Haas of Stroll and Behrman, respectively, on the back row of the grid. And they're just about lining up now. And here we go. Can Oscar Piastri deliver his second win of the year? Let's find out. As the green flag waves, the lights are on. It's 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's go in Bahrain. And Piastri gets a good start and immediately comes across to cover as Russell gets a great start. Will he overtake Leclerc into turn 1? He locks up. Tries to go around the outside of Piastri, but Piastri brilliantly covers it off. Lando Norris has had a brilliant start and is side by side with Leclerc. And I think Norris might just about be up to third. As they're coming through now, turn 4, and Norris goes round the outside of Leclerc. Not sure if he completed it off the track. Leclerc may argue that, but Norris is up to third as Gasly here, side by side with Antonelli, who goes off slightly, and now has got Sainz going down the inside of him at the hairpin. Who, does he complete the move? I think, yes, he has. Yes, just about. So Antonelli in the wars. What a start from Carlos Sainz. So I think he's in 5th or in 6th place. So it is Piastri, Russell, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly, Sainz, Antonelli, Verstappen, Hamilton, and Tsunoda. That is your top 10. And then Doohan is in 11th place.
My God, I thought Russell was going to completely turn in on Piastri. There at turn 1, I was like, holy moly, he's turned in so early, but a great start by Norris, and that overtake on Leclerc looked all okay on track limits.
As Norris, that was exactly the type of start he needed. As we now begin lap 2, Oscar Piastri leading by 0.8 of a second ahead of George Russell. Norris in third. Leclerc fourth. There's some racing there in the background. Albon and Behrman. What a start Behrman has had. He's just overtaken Albon. He's up to... Well, he's now back down to... But he's now 15th. What a start from him. And he was almost right behind his teammate as the top 10 is, as we've got racing side by side at the back between the two Saubers. Hulkenberg's had a very poor start. But it's Piastri, Russell, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly, Sainz, Antonelli, Verstappen, and then Hamilton, Tsunoda, Doohan, Ocon, Alonso, and then Albon, Behrman up to 15th. Isaac Hadjar's had a terrible start from 12th to 16th. And then it's Lawson, Stroll, Bortoletto, and Hulkenberg. As Antonelli, under pressure from the Mercedes, the rear wing of that Mercedes, moving around quite a bit. But, yeah, he is just about okay for the time being. As we're about to move on to lap 3, and Piastri now over a second clear of Russell. That is key, because now he can pull away and Russell will not hang about in his DRS window. Lando Norris, though, is within a second of Russell as Piastri does the fastest lap of 1:37.4. Brilliant first proper lap after the first lap there to pull himself clear, as Gasly keeping up nicely with Leclerc in the fight for fourth. Leclerc, not sure starting on the mediums is helping him right now, but maybe it'll come back to him later, as Albon has passed Alonso and Norris really is closing on Russell here in the middle sector. And we'll see if Lando can keep up this pressure. And really, well, needs to. As, Alonso has dropped to 14th on his medium compound. Just trying to make sure I get the right driver. As, Lando Norris, no. It goes from bad to worse. Out of position on the grid. He's been noted for it. That is a 5-second penalty normally? I think that is.
It should be, yep.
So that could very well cost him second in this Grand Prix, as Russell pulled away in the second sector of that lap quite a bit. Yeah, that is going to be quite costly. And he'll have to, if he gets penalised before his first pit stop, he'll have to serve it at his first stop. As Gasly, like I said, keeping up really nicely with Leclerc. And I know my prediction of Gasly finishing 7th might have surprised some people, but as I showed with the data from qualifying, Alpine had the second best car in the middle part of the lap. So,
yep, Max said over the team radio that Lando was over his grid box, and looks like he was.
As Hamilton just complaining there about the grip on his tyre, as he's nearly a second behind Verstappen. And normally when you're noted for that, it's a slam dunk penalty. It happens every time someone gets noted for that, as Piastri has pulled the gap up to about a second and a half. And yeah, right now, the main fight is Gasly versus Leclerc for 4th place. And Gasly keeping up very nicely. And you got to say, Carlos Sainz in 6th place is doing a good job as well. He's not really under that much pressure from Antonelli behind. Antonelli is not far behind, but not exactly putting him under tons of pressure. As down the pit straight, Gasly is closing on Leclerc, but he's not close enough to go for an overtake as Antonelli dives down the inside at turn 1 on Carlos Sainz out of nowhere and just about takes it. That was such a late dive, and thankfully for him, Carlos saw him coming. And Antonelli is up to 6th. It's now Sainz defending from Verstappen, who goes round the outside. They're so close, Sainz and Verstappen. But Max, brilliant overtake, takes the position. That was brilliant racing between the two. And Carlos, just as I was praising him, he's lost 2 positions halfway through the lap as Max immediately complaining that he didn't leave a car's width on the exit of turn 4. But that was brilliant stuff.
Yeah, very good stuff. And Norris is under investigation now.
Well, here's a replay of the start. Do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, I will take us through it. And it does look like Norris is very far forward on his grid slots. Verstappen actually got a pretty awful start. Russell did turn in very early, I thought there, but all was good in the end once he realised what was going to happen. It was Hadjar right at the back who ran very, very wide. As we noted, he lost 4 places. As there's quite a lot going on. As Stroll trying to do an absolute madness of a move around the outside of Tsunoda, but that was never ever happening.
Look how far Lando is over.
That is a I'm sorry, 5-second. This might be a little bit biased, but a 5-second penalty for that is a joke when he has gained that much of advantage.
Yeah, he wasn't just a slight bit over. He was way over his grid box. That was awful from Lando, the parking job he did there. As Lando still stuck behind Russell, and because of that, Leclerc, I was about to say, closing in, but Leclerc just went wide at the hairpin, and Gasly's now all over his back into turn 10. And as we're now seeing a replay of Behrman, who is now 14th and has presumably just overtaken Alonso, who's on the medium. And Behrman, what a start from the back. And yeah, he got through those cars despite it being so close. And here's a replay of Antonelli. What a move. Down the inside, and wow. That was late. And like I said, Neb, he was very lucky that Carlos saw him coming.
Great move, and he just got it stopped in time. And then, of course, that compromised Sainz, who was then picked off by Verstappen with a brilliant overtake around the outside of turn 4.
As, yeah, they're just showing some good replays of that now. As we're now on lap 7. Lando still under investigation as Isaac Hadjar pits already. That is a very early pit stop. Still 50 laps to go. Maybe just trying the undercut to try something. And yeah, looks like that's what they're doing. I was going to say Piastri 2.2 clear of Russell. He's all good out front. Lando still stuck behind behind Russell by a few tenths. Leclerc has dropped over a second behind. Gasly just over a second behind Leclerc. And then Antonelli 6th. Got Verstappen a few tenths behind him. And then Sainz in 8th has got Hamilton a few tenths behind. So we've got many battles in the top 10. The fight for 2nd, the fight for 6th, fight for 8th, 9th, and 10th as well, because Tsunoda is just about hanging on to Hamilton ahead. Yeah, Hadjar has pitted and is on the medium compound tyre, which is, I think, what is going to be the most used tyre in this race. So I'll just update quickly that, yeah, he is on that medium as we're on lap 8. And yeah, 2.5 seconds is the lead. Piastri, as is Norris, has been given a 5-second time penalty for a false start. Absolutely.
Don't know why it took so long for the graphics to come out then. They tweeted it out about 30 seconds ago. I was just waiting for you to stop talking to interrupt. But that took a while for them to announce that.
Yeah, it was a
But yes, slam dunk penalty.
exactly, yes, slam dunk. And the longer he's held up behind Russell here, that will cost him, as he's just being informed that he has been given a 5-second penalty. And now has got to pass Russell. And actually, from Max's on board, they're just showing that Lando, he stopped and then creeped forward and then stopped. So Lando presumably thought he was not far enough ahead in his grid box and then ended up going miles over. So that is a very poor mistake. But he still might get away with it yet, especially in that car. As Hulkenberg, I think, also has pitted. I'll just update that he's on him and Hajar are both on the medium as well on lap 9. Piastri about 3 seconds clear of Russell. Piastri really stretching his legs out front. Russell has just got to keep ahead of Lando in this first stint, and then maybe once Lando takes his penalty, they can maybe have a bit more of a relaxed time for a few laps. As Ocon pits, very early pit stops, which is only good for us. And clearly, the medium compound is working, as Lewis Hamilton proving that by just about diving to the inside of Sainz. And Hamilton, he gets a poor exit, and that will allow Sainz back through, will it? Yes, it will. But Hamilton now gets the switch back into the hairpin. Will he go down the inside? No. Sainz covers it, but goes wide. And Hamilton now gets a good exit. You got Tsunoda now right in there, trying to pick up the scraps. And Sainz has no pace. The cars ahead have cleared off very quickly, and he's defending so hard here. As Hamilton gets the move done. And yes, Sainz is now... Is he being passed by Tsunoda? Yes, he is. As Carlos is going to have to pit. He's clearly destroyed his tyres. As now Doohan about to overtake for 10th. As Piastri saying he's starting to struggle a bit. He's still 3 seconds clear, so he's doing a good job of not showing it, as Norris still stuck behind us. Here comes Antonelli on Gasly down the inside. And Antonelli, is he up to 5th? Nope, Gasly forces his way back up the inside into turn 2, but that only gives him a bad exit for turn 4, and they'll climb up to turn 4. And Antonelli, will he go around the outside? No, he'll go for the switchback, and it works perfectly. Brilliant move from Antonelli, who is up to 5th.
Yeah, that was absolutely perfect. Got Gasly defending the inside, picking up the marbles, perfectly executed switchback.
As Doohan, who was right behind Sainz, is now pitted. Ocon was right behind Doohan before the pit stops. He pitted before Doohan, and now he's ahead of Doohan. And Doohan has just overtaken Hajar. So worked out well for Ocon, who is in a net, I think, top 10 position pretty much now. As Verstappen desperately trying to get past Pierre Gasly, who is clearly suffering a bit more at this point of the race. Still doing well, though, for Alpine. As on lap 11, Piastri nearly 3.5 clear of Russell. Norris starting to struggle in the dirty air. He's dropped about just over a second behind and has decided to come in. And he's going to serve the 5 seconds. Gasly and Verstappen now pit. Norris should, and he does, rejoin ahead of Gasly and Verstappen. They've had a slow pit stop there for Max. 4.7 seconds. That is going to be a bit costly for him. But Norris comes out in 14th place. And there's plenty of clear air in front, so Mercedes have got to react. But it is Leclerc now up to 3rd, Antonelli 4th, Hamilton is now 5th. As that is it Gasly? Yep, Gasly and Ocon. Ocon, though, does not have as good a tyres and car as the Alpine. So Tsunoda is 6th, and then Sainz is in 7th, Albon 8th, Behrman is 9th, Alonso now 10th on the medium, and then I think it's Lawson and Bortoletto 11th and 12th. As Verstappen has gone on to the hard compound tyre, interestingly. And he went to get going and then he stopped again. So that seemed to be a driver error there. As here,
it was still red on the
the
on
light.
the thing that hangs down. It didn't go green. Yeah.
As here's a replay of Hamilton passing Sainz. And one thing, this is really working out well for Ferrari because, I mean, they were going to always go longer as it's lap 12 now. Piastri and Russell have both stayed out, interestingly. These pit stops are quite a bit earlier than we expected, and that is very good news for Ferrari. Because if they can run quite a bit longer, that will really help them later in this race, especially Leclerc. Leclerc is only 2.5 seconds behind Russell. So watch out for Ferrari. They're in good nick here. As we're looking at Piastri, 4 seconds clear of Russell at towards the end of lap 12. By the way, I know the tyre information on screen is incorrect. I will get it correct once everyone has made their pit stop, pretty much. As Lando Norris has just overtaken Bortoletto. As Tsunoda has just pitted. And Tsunoda has come out in 19th place. Tsunoda, though, on the medium, as Antonelli now pits for Mercedes. So presumably Russell will be in a lap after. Medium tyre for Antonelli. So Ferrari now 3rd and 4th. As that is Gasly passing Norris. Norris is not that far ahead of Gasly. I know Norris had his penalty, but I still expected Lando to be quite far ahead of Gasly. But he's only about second clear as Gasly has left Max Verstappen in the dust a bit. Verstappen stuck behind Ocon, who Gasly overtook a couple laps ago. So Max is really struggling out there at the start of this second stint. And here's a replay of Tsunoda coming in, changing the tyres.
Yeah, he had the same thing.
And yeah, he did. So Red Bull have got to fix that because that is going to cost them valuable time on the racetrack. But it's currently Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli is now 15th after that pit stop. So he's not... Antonelli has lost position to Verstappen, but he's not really lost that much time. So Antonelli's still okay. As now George Russell pits on lap 14 and should come out ahead of Lando Norris. by probably 2 or 3 seconds, I would imagine. As Alonso goes past. And yeah, actually a bit closer as Norris goes down the inside of Lawson at turn 1. Goes a bit deep, though. So the pit stop had to be made at that point. But now a bit fresher tyres for Mercedes as Russell immediately overtakes Alonso. So Russell is 7th. Norris is now up to 9th. So Piastri in the lead. Piastri, I'm sure, is going to come in at the end of either this lap or the next one. And then Leclerc 2nd, Hamilton 3rd. Obviously, both of the mediums, both haven't pitted yet. Sainz 4th, Albon 5th. Williams doing what they usually do, going long or longer. Behrman 6th. He's doing a good job. Russell 7th, Alonso 8th, Norris 9th, Lawson 10th. And then Gasly 11th. And then Ocon, Verstappen, Antonelli, Doohan, Sonoda, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Stroll, and then Bortoletto has just pitted for a set of hard tyres. And here comes your race leader, Oscar Piastri. Great pit stop, set of mediums. He's going to have much fresher tyres than his teammate, so he should be able to pull away quite handsomely. And will he come out ahead of the two Williamses? That would really be even better, and he will. That is even better for him. Avoids the traffic. So Piastri, as one of the Williams pitted.
Sainz.
Yeah. So it is Leclerc leading from Hamilton 2nd. Both haven't pitted, both on the mediums, both doing well. Piastri 3rd, Albon 4th. Russell 5th. Carlos Sainz has dropped down to 16th place, but he's on quite a bit fresher tyres now, so I expect some progress from him. And then it's Russell 5th. Lando Norris is now 6th. And then Alonso 7th. As Antonelli, this is, who is right up behind Verstappen. Verstappen still struggling on the hard tyre. Verstappen is still stuck behind Ocon. How is that possible? I know Ocon did make an early pit stop, but that Red Bull should be way quicker, as that is Russell passing Albon for 4th. But yeah, Max is really struggling, even though he has got the fastest lap of the race for the moment. So yeah, Gasly is 8th, Ocon 9th, Verstappen 10th, Antonelli 11th. And then Doohan 12th, as Ferrari were about to pit one of their cars and they've decided not to. And I don't think they should yet, because I think they could still run quite a bit longer here on lap 16. Leclerc is about 17 seconds ahead of Piastri. Obviously, if Leclerc was to pit now, he'll come out about 6 seconds or so behind Oscar. But I think it's worth Leclerc probably getting until at least lap 20. Same for Hamilton. Getting another 4 or 5 laps before they pit, I think, would be a good decision there. Brilliant, I think, strategy called by Ferrari, looking now to start on that tyre. As Verstappen still is stuck behind Ocon. And Ocon is now about to overtake Alonso, who hasn't pitted yet. So, yeah, Verstappen is having a miserable Grand Prix, stuck behind a Haas, which I don't think anyone thought would be the case.
No, and costly mistake by the Red Bull. Well, whoever's in charge of fixing the pit light at Red Bull. A disaster for them, and I think perhaps not the smartest strategy to put him onto the hard compounded tyre at this stage of the race, where he still had to overtake cars, and there wasn't clear air for him to then use those hard tyres to catch up to the back of other people. So I think it's been a little bit of a misplay by Red Bull.
Yeah, they are suffering for it now. As Williams bring in Alex Albon, who, as I said before the race, usually goes a few laps longer than everyone else, and he's done that, and that maybe will help him later. As Alonso comes in as well, obviously he started on the medium. Albon goes on to a set of hard tyres. Here's Antonelli. He's right up behind Verstappen up to turn 4. He's going to go for the outside line. Going to go for the switchback instead. Does he get the better exit? He does. But Max is no way going to let him have the inside line. And Max keeps it. But Antonelli, without a doubt, is quicker. And that car is quicker than the Red Bull. There is zero doubt about that. And it's going to happen at some point. As a result of all this pit stop madness, Esteban Ocon is currently 7th. And once the Ferraris pit, he might be up to 5th. What a absolutely brilliant race Ocon is having so far. And here comes Charles Leclerc. Pits from the lead. About 14 seconds clear of Piastri. Obviously, he will come out quite a few seconds behind, but he will now have
Sounded like Leclerc didn't want to box.
Yeah, I was thinking he probably should have gone till lap 20, but we'll see we'll see how this works out as Hamilton pits as well. So both Ferraris in. Watch out for Ferrari. They are going to be very interesting to watch in this race. He does come out Leclerc behind Gasly, so he technically has lost position, but he's got a lot fresher tyres. Hamilton comes out right behind Tsunoda, but again, much fresher tyres. That is Sainz passing Hadjar. Sainz is making his way through the pack pretty quickly. So on lap 18, Piastri leads by 2.5 seconds from Russell in 2nd. Norris 3rd. Pierre Gasly is currently in 4th. Leclerc 5th. Ocon 6th. Verstappen 7th. Antonelli 8th. Tsunoda 9th. Hamilton 10th. What a top 10 we have. As all bit of an unsafe release there has been noted. It was Behrman who was released. I think he'll probably get away with that, though. As that is Leclerc, who has just passed Gasly at turn 11. So Leclerc already getting on with it in 4th. Yeah, what a mental top 10 we have. And
Jack the GOAT doing in P9. Vamos.
Yeah, he is actually. I didn't quite see that. Doohan is in 9th, and yes, Tsunoda 10th. And then it's Hamilton, 11th now. Sainz 12th. Hadjar 13th. Behrman has come out in 14th. Hulkenberg 15th. Albon 16th. And then Stroll, Alonso, Lawson, and Bortoletto. And what is good is we've still got a mix of strategies out there. Some drivers are on the hard tyres, most are on the medium, but a lot of the medium runners have pitted at different times. So yeah, this race is set up nicely. As that is Lewis Hamilton, who has just overtaken Yuki Tsunoda for 10th place. And that is Sainz. A replay of him overtaking. And this is a replay of how Leclerc passed Gasly up the inside in turn 11. Gasly not defending, which is obviously the smart play. Leclerc much faster on much fresher tyres. Leclerc is only 3.2 seconds behind Norris. See if that gap comes down. And if it does, how quickly it comes down. But Max Verstappen is the highest placed runner, not on the medium compound tyres, on the hard compound, and then everyone else in the top 10 is on the medium. As Jack Doohan, about 1.5 behind Antonelli in 9th. Alpine are currently heading for 12 championship points. which would put them from last all the way up to, I think, 7th. So heading for a big race at the minute, but there is still a long way to go as Antonelli forces Verstappen to defend again. And Antonelli does an almighty switchback on the exit of turn 1. Not sure if he got the best exit doing that, but he's going to try up to turn 4. And clearly loves the switchback. And he's going to try it again on Verstappen, and he's going to get it done this time. Antonelli passes Verstappen, something we might be saying quite often in the future. And Antonelli is up to 7th place. Brilliant racecraft, wasn't it, Nib, there to get the move done. I thought he messed up the switchback for out of turn 1, but was still enough.
He definitely did mess up the one at turn 1. He ended up going all over the curb on the inside, but nah, brilliant move by Antonelli. And yeah, Red Bull have certainly made a mistake here with their strategy early on in this race. Verstappen is going absolutely nowhere. Heck, he might be even under pressure from Doohan.
He is under pressure from Doohan. Doohan's now only 7/10 behind, and clearly is a lot quicker. And Lewis Hamilton, very quick behind as well. So he's definitely going to lose another position because Hamilton has got a lot more pace. And on lap 21, reminder, Piastri out front, 4 seconds clear of Russell. Norris, 1.5 behind Russell. Leclerc has got the gap down under 2 seconds. Leclerc is very much in play for the podium, definitely in this Grand Prix. As Red Bull look like they have no idea what's going on. As Antonelli tries to pull away. Antonelli's next potential victim is Ocon, still having an amazing race in 6th. Ocon was one of the first cars to pit, and it really has benefited him massively. Ocon is less than 10 seconds away from a podium position on lap 21. Right, let me just quickly update the other tyres. So, nobody, by the way, is out there on a set of softs. It's either medium or hard tyres. Behrman up to 13th. Albon is up to 15th. Alonso's up to 17th. As here is Hamilton right up behind Doohan. And even though Doohan's got DRS from the back of Verstappen, I still think Hamilton will have enough pace to get this done because he's got a lot more drive off the final corner. And he's got the quickest car normally down the straights. And down to turn 1, surely he's going to send it, and he does. Up to 9th, and soon he will do battle with his old foe, Max Verstappen. 4 years ago, these two battled in a brilliant race for the win. Now they're battling for 8th place. And yeah, Hamilton already pressurising Max straight away as they get into the middle sector. Here's a replay of Behrman passing Hadjar. Behrman is on the hard tyre. He was one of the latter cars to pit as well, so watch out for him. Haas having a very good race. Started 14th and 20th, and they're currently 6th and 13th. And we're not even halfway through the race. What a race they're having. And that was a brilliant move by Behrman. As here comes Hamilton. Max doesn't even defend. And Lewis is up to 8th. Verstappen, I'm not going to say he's given up, but he knows that there's just nothing he can do today. The car is absolutely dreadful. And Red Bull have messed his race up. At this rate, Nib, Max might not even score points. He's got
Possibly.
You got Doohan right behind him, and you got Tsunoda a couple seconds behind him in the other Red Bull. As Max says, I can't even brake anymore, so clearly it's the brakes, which is a big reason why he's so slow.
Yeah, he's saying everything's overheating and now complaining about the brakes. So, yeah, just a disaster here for Red Bull, quite frankly, and Verstappen.
It's quite incredible to see. A week ago, he was the king in Suzuka. And now, obviously, because of the car, he is being made to look a fool here in Bahrain. And like I said, he might not even finish in the points at this rate. His pace is absolutely awful. Got to be one of the slowest cars out there. As this is Lando Norris, just 1.1 behind Russell. But look who's only right behind Norris. It's Leclerc, who's now under a second behind. Here we go. Ferrari. The brilliant strategy call they made to start Leclerc and Hamilton on the mediums is paying off now, because Leclerc has got much better pace, and surely, given the pace he's got, has got to be finishing on the podium at this rate. As on lap 24, Piastri 5 seconds clear of Russell as Leclerc dives to the inside of Norris at turn 1, but he goes too deep, and Lando retakes it. As Hadjar's had a black and white flag there, but Leclerc, no doubt, even though he's not got the move done this time, he will pass Lando in this next lap or two. He is a lot quicker on much fresher tyres. As Lewis Hamilton has the fastest lap and is about to overtake Antonelli for 7th. So both Ferraris flying through the field. Let me just get the tyre information correct. As Albon is now up to 14th. I'll correct that in a moment. And then the two at the back are on the hard compound tyre. I think Lawson and Bortoletto. But Albon is, in... Go on.
You can see why Leclerc had an attempt at Norris there. There was certainly an opportunity, as Hamilton is absolutely all over the back of Antonelli now.
Yeah, this is an inevitable overtake, just like Leclerc and Norris, I think. As here comes Leclerc again in turn 1. Norris this time defends to the middle. That's going to put him in not a great position heading up to turn 4. And Leclerc gets a great exit. As Hamilton goes for the inside on Antonelli, but we need to be looking at Leclerc. Here we go. Leclerc round the outside of Norris at turn 4. Has he got the move done? Yes, he has. Leclerc up to 3rd, and this is one of those days. Leclerc's feeling it, and he's on it. As both Ferraris overtake on the same lap, and Leclerc, his next target is Russell, who surely he will overtake. He's a lot quicker than Russell at this moment. Brilliant, brilliant move. As Piastri, 5.5 clear out front. Leclerc 7 seconds off the lead. It's not impossible for Leclerc to win this race, but very unlikely still. Piastri still has a lot of pace, I think, out front. But as his Hamilton diving down the inside of Antonelli. I just saw, though, Max is about a pit stop behind Piastri now. And is about nearly 20 seconds away from Russell, Leclerc, and the podium sitters. So Max is got no chance for podium at this point. But as who's there? This is Hamilton now on Ocon for 6th. So quick is Hamilton. And he's now going to pass Ocon easily for 6th. Ocon obviously will not defend. And Hamilton up to 6th place. Hamilton, this is the first time we've seen him alive on track, really, all weekend. He's been pretty poor all weekend, but now he has, like I said, he has come alive. As Alonso, I've just seen, has passed Hulkenberg. But yeah, what a race we are having so far. And luckily for us, we've still got just over 30 laps to go. And plenty still to go in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, let's see if Ferrari can keep up this pace.
Yeah, Leclerc are very interested. Once he passes Russell, which he's going to do in a couple laps probably, he's just over a second behind as they come onto the back straight before the final corner. Be interested to see what his pace is like in clear air. He's about just under 7.5 seconds behind Piastri. So Piastri's still comfortable. Piastri's 6 seconds clear of Russell. But Ferrari, this is the first race, really, where they've been like this, where they've been really noticeably fast. And it's really good to see. Obviously, the strategy choice helped a lot. As here comes Verstappen to pit and get off those hard tyres. And, oh, the front right won't come off. Oh, what a disaster. 6.2 seconds. Everything is going wrong for Max Verstappen today. And he is going to drop to the very back. Yep, Max Verstappen is now last on lap 27. I know it's a pit stop, a second stop, and everyone else is pitted. But still.
He's probably going to have to pit again, though.
Yeah, he will. He's on the mediums now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have to come in probably in 15 laps or something.
Since when have Red Bull ever had 2 pit stops which combined for bloody 10 seconds? What's going on, Red Bull?
Completely different team has shown up today as Leclerc, interestingly, has not got within a second of Russell still as they begin lap 28. Russell doing a really good job to keep Leclerc over a second behind. As Lewis Hamilton soon should be overtaking Gasly for 5th. Gasly, what a weekend he's having. But his P5 will become P6 pretty soon. As Ocon and Antonelli now pit in retaliation to what Max has done, as Verstappen already has passed Bortoletto on this lap, so he's very quick. As Aston Martin out for a pit stop, probably Lance Stroll, who pitted, I think, quite a bit before Alonso. As Ocon will come out just ahead of Stroll, I think it is, and Antonelli is going to come up behind all of them. So that's worked out brilliantly for Ocon. But Antonelli is going to clear these cars now. He's got Lawson to clear, and he does up the inside. But yeah, that's worked out well for Ocon. As here's a replay and oh, they put the wrong. Wait, that was the wrong pit stop. That was the one earlier. I was going to say they put the wrong tyre on because it was the hard tyre on. And that was Tsunoda. Oh, they're showing all the pit stops. And so that light keeps flashing. And still was flashing when Max made his stop. And yeah, the hard tyre did not come off for a few seconds, and that's cost Max another 4 seconds. Absolute disaster. As now Gasly and Doohan have pitted. So Alpine double stacking. They were far enough apart that it was doable. Can they get this second stop right? Not the greatest stop, but it's good enough.
Sorry, I couldn't help but laugh as Ted was pleading for them to bring back the Lollipop Man.
Yeah, well, exactly. Back in those days, wouldn't have to worry about stupid lights determining whether you went or not. As that is Verstappen overtaking Stroll. But we are now halfway through this Grand Prix, amazingly. So it's, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton now 5th. Tsunoda is 6th. Carlos Sainz is just over. Did he just overtake someone? No, I don't think so. But Sainz is right behind Tsunoda, so he is about to overtake Tsunoda. As Lando says, why is my right red light on? I can't turn it off. And McLaren saying we're investigating, so I'm not sure what that's about. But the rest of the top 10 is Albon in 8th. Behrman is 9th, and Gasly is in 10th on lap 30. As Leclerc cannot get within a second of Russell. Russell doing a great job here to keep Leclerc at bay. As Norris, not massively, but a bit, being left in the dust. Couple seconds behind Leclerc. Not really fighting. And as it stands in the championship, both McLaren drivers will be level on points in the Drivers' Championship going into the next Grand Prix. And Piastri will obviously move up to 2nd if Max does not score a point, which is, as it stands, the case. As Sainz has passed Tsunoda. So Sainz up to 6th. Remember, Sainz pitted a bit later than others for his first stop, so that's why he's still out there. Albon, is 8th. Behrman 9th. Gasly 10th. And then Alonso is 11th. Alonso hasn't pitted for a second time yet. And then Ocon 12th. It says Antonelli's on the soft tyre in 13th.
Yeah, he is.
Which is interesting strategy. And so that is Tsunoda getting passed by Sainz at turn 1. Sainz went deep. Tsunoda drifted, and there was, I think, slight contact there. Because something fell off the Red Bull or one of those cars. That fell off was that the Red Bull? On the run up to turn 4. A lot of, it looked like from the floor area. And that was quite dramatic. As Doohan has just overtaken Stroll. So outside of the top 10, you've got Alonso in 11th, Ocon 12th, and then Antonelli. Verstappen is 14th, Doohan 15th, Stroll 16th, and then Lawson, Bortoletto, Hadjar, and Hulkenberg is the rest of your field. On lap 31 is Piastri 7 seconds clear of Russell. Leclerc still 1.2 behind as Norris still dropping a 10th here, a 10th there to Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton 9 seconds behind Norris. As that is Antonelli passing Alonso. Ocon has just passed Alonso as well. And Max Verstappen will be the next car to overtake, as Tsunoda has now got Alex Albon for company. Both Williamses haven't seemingly been in that great of positions at times in this race, but because they went a bit longer, it's kind of skewing things. But when we get to the final few laps of this race, Williams we will have to look out for, because they will be very quick at the end. As Albon should be passing Tsunoda in the next couple laps, you'd think, and making this a P6 and P7 for the Williams team. But Tsunoda is still within a second of Sainz. Tsunoda not suffering any pace drop-off from that damage. As Sainz now weaving slightly, only moved once there. As Gasly just behind, passing Behrman for ninth. Gasly's on the hard tyre, so I'm presuming Gasly is going to the end on that compound. So, right. So, yeah, Gasly's on the hard. Behrman is on the hard tyre as well. Albon is on the hard tyre. And Albon, of course. Oh, safety car. That is for the debris.
The debris.
Up to turn 4. Clearly, they can't clear it away. It's probably because the field is that close. There's no big gap to clear. That is brilliant news if you are Williams, because they can now pit both cars onto fresh tyres. Not great news for Ferrari. But yeah, everyone pretty much is going to have to come in now. But
it's mainly out of turn 1 actually. That's where it seems to be at its worst actually. The stuff up at turn 4 seems to be off the track.
As all the front 4 all coming in. Russell going onto the soft tyre. So, surely that means he'll have to pit again. Because this safety car's not going to last that long. I can't see him doing 20 laps on that tyre. Leclerc's on the hard. Norris on the medium. That is perfect. 3 different compounds. For second, third, and fourth. Hamilton. Not sure what compound he's on, but Gasly stays out. This has not worked out well for Gasly.
Yeah, horror timing.
Tsunoda comes in. And Albon might have to stack up here. Behind Sainz. And no, he doesn't have to. Not too much at least. As Antonelli pits again for another set of soft tyres. So the top 5 remains the same. But outside of that, it is absolutely mental now. And Max Verstappen has also been screwed over quite a bit here. Because he's now 8th, but he's on quite a bit older tyres than everyone behind him. So Max is going to be in trouble on this restart. But yeah, the race was already spiced up, but this has spiced things up even more. Just over halfway through this Grand Prix. As Lewis saying, great job for the stops, guys. Great job. So, Piastri leads. Russell 2nd. Leclerc 3rd. Norris 4th. Hamilton 5th. Gasly is 6th. Ocon 7th. Also, Ocon's been a bit screwed over here. Verstappen 8th. Doohan is 9th. Here's a replay of Sainz and Tsunoda. And Tsunoda hit the back of Sainz. That was after Sainz had overtaken him. Front wing hitting the back of Carlos's tyre there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of debris here at turn 1 and then also up at turn 3.
There's all contact there as well. Lawson and Stroll. Stroll nearly getting a puncture there. Verstappen 8th, Doohan 9th, Sainz 10th. Against Williams, this has been great for them. Tsunoda 11th, Behrman 12th, Albon 13th, Antonelli 14th. Antonelli is, he's pitted again, but it's going to be a difficult rest of the race, I think, for the 2 Mercedes cars. Both Mercedes are on the soft tyre. Again, it's going to be hard to get to the end on that compound. It'd be easier than it was at the start, because there's a lot of rubber down now, but yeah. Alonso 15th, Hadjar is 16th. And then it's Hulkenberg, Lawson, Stroll, and Bortoletto. And Russell just said on the radio, 24 laps on a soft, this is pretty audacious. And yeah, I'm not sure about that decision from Mercedes. I think that's going to cost him a podium. But we will see. So, soft tyre for Russell, hard for Leclerc, medium for Norris. And then, let me just quickly get up the live timing on my end so I can get the tyres all correct. So Hamilton, Gasly, and Ocon are on the medium. On the hard compound tyre as a safety car goes through again, begins lap 35. So yeah, Hamilton, Gasly, and Ocon on the hard. So you would imagine, not sure about Gasly and Ocon, maybe they'll try another stop, but I think Hamilton and Leclerc definitely are going to the end. Both McLarens definitely going to the end. Russell, we'll have to see, but it's going to be tricky. Lap 35 now we're on. And yeah, Verstappen is on the medium, but he's in a difficult position, Max, because he was one of the first to pit for the second time. And he's got, I think, the oldest tyres of the entire field. So, yeah, he is in a very difficult situation. Tsunoda is on the soft doing, and Sainz ahead are on the hard tyres. Behrman on the soft. Albon is on the medium. So, interestingly, Williams have split strategy. Again, Antonelli is on the soft. A safety car in at the end of this lap. God, I cannot wait to get this race back underway. And then Alonso and Hadjar are on the hard. And then Hulkenberg on the medium. Lawson on the soft. And then Stroll on the hard and Bortoletto on the medium. So many different compounds and strategies out there. And that's exactly what we want. As the safety car goes away and Piastri now becomes the safety car. He was absolutely brilliant. At the times, other times I've seen him lead the pack away. And he should be again. But it is a long way down to turn one. And you just never know what could happen. As he goes for it on the exit of turn one. As Leclerc has a poor restart. And Norris is all over him. As they come down the pit straight. Can't overtake till after the finish line. And Norris is going to go for the inside line. But Leclerc breaks even later. And Hamilton goes right round the outside of the McLaren, and he takes the position. Lewis Hamilton just about gets up to fourth. Can Norris come back? And he's going to try it round the outside. And Lando gets the position back again. I'm not sure if he stayed on the track or not, but it looked okay to me. But Norris just about back into fourth as Sainz has had a poor start here and is down to 12th, but he kept on the track, didn't he, Lando?
It looked it, yep.
As Sainz has now dropped to 13th. The soft tyre runners of Tsunoda, Behrman and Antonelli have really had a great restart here. And Hamilton, brilliant move to go round the outside of Norris, but wasn't able to get a good enough exit. Had a slight bit of oversteer on the exit as well, and that allowed Lando to get a great run coming back at his older fellow Brit. And he is back down to 5th, but Norris putting pressure once again on Leclerc. Leclerc, remember, is on the hard tyre, which is not going to have the warm-up. As Lando has been told to give back position. So clearly, he did go all 4 wheels over.
Wow.
And here goes Hamilton through. Hamilton up to 4th. This race gets even worse for Norris, who is now in 5th. And with 20 laps to go, as it stands, Piastri is heading for the championship lead unless Lando can do something. So, 3rd and 4th now for the 2 Ferraris. What a result, at least that would be. Remember, Ferrari have not had a podium in a real race yet this season. That's a replay of Sainz and Antonelli. And Sainz dive bombing and pushing Antonelli out of the way. And Antonelli has lost out quite a bit with that. And Carlos, I think,
Ready to see.
Go on.
Ready to see a move in an F1 car there at turn 10.
Yeah, that was incredibly aggressive, I must say.
That's got to be a penalty, I think. Sainz went off the track. That's got to be a penalty.
Well, we'll see. See what happens there. As George Russell is dropping down the field. Unless there's a timing error. Might be a timing error,
Gotta be a timing error.
Yeah, because he's just gone straight to the back. As Verstappen overtakes Ocon. As here comes Norris round the outside of Hamilton up to turn 4. Can he get it done? Yes, he does. Lando Norris is up to 4th place. And yeah, Russell has clearly got a timing glitch because he is just stuck in 20th for no apparent reason, as Verstappen is now up to 7th. And Verstappen having a good restart here. Clearly feeling better, at least for now, on that compound. But still, remember, Max has the oldest tyres of anyone, I think, in the whole field. So it might be okay at the minute, but we'll see what it's like in 20 laps at the end. But
I was about to say, we saw Russell dropping down the boards, but we couldn't see him go on past, getting overtaken by all these cars. So it's obviously it's just a timing issue.
Yeah, I
think they've fixed it now.
Yeah, and we can now see visibly that he is 2nd on the track on lap 39.
Yeah, the gap is 1.5 seconds between Piastri and Russell.
As here, a crazy fight out at the back end of the top 10. Tsunoda's been dive bombed there by Behrman, but Tsunoda gets it back. Tsunoda was trying to pass Doohan, and Behrman nicked in to try and get through. Here comes Alex Albon. Oh, Behrman defends or tries to go for an overtake there. I'm not sure Behrman was looking in his mirrors. As now Antonelli on the exit gets through. Brilliant racing, and Antonelli is up to, what would that be, 12th place?
12th, yeah.
Sainz, yes, Sainz has now dropped to 14th. He's had a horrible restart, has the Spaniard. But Albon looking good, and Williams still should score some points here, as Albon is on the medium. Sainz might be struggling a bit because he's on the hard tyre. But yeah, crazy fight going on there in the back end of the top 10. Because it's all jumbled around and crazy, this is a great chance for those smaller teams to get some really big points. Especially Alpine, they need points on the board.
Gap 1.7 seconds at the front now.
Yeah,
1.7 seconds between the top four, car to car.
Right. As yeah, on the TV broadcast, they're not showing the tower order.
Oh, never mind. My Twitter's been bugging.
As round the outside, that's Sainz defending. I think actually from I think it's Hulkenberg. It is. Hulkenberg is in 15th. Again, I can't update it real time because everything is messed up on the TV broadcast. We can't actually see what the live timing is. As down the back straight into turn 11, we're looking at Jack Doohan, currently 9th. Just needs to keep it together, Doohan. He's heading for his first points in Formula One as it stands, but there is still a long way to go in this race. I know it only seems, 16, 17 laps, but around this track, that is a long way to go with so many overtaking opportunities. As down the pit straight, Doohan has Tsunoda behind him, who's got DRS, but Tsunoda is just not close enough to overtake. Antonelli is really the one we need to look out for. He has, you'd think, the most pace out of any of those cars. As very close it is at the back, I can see to the Aston Martins and the Saubers. As Behrman, remember Behrman, who's currently 11th, as Lawson and Stroll noted for a safety car infringement. That's probably going to be a penalty. Behrman started last, and he's currently 11th, and he's tantalizingly close to a points finish. And there's his father, David, in the garage. As Tsunoda is just desperately trying to get after Doohan. He really should be passing Doohan. He's on fresher and softer tyres. As Lewis on the radio saying the car won't turn. Both Ferraris on hard tyres, which I'm not sure is working out too great for them. Maybe not as great as they expected at the minute, but we'll have to see how things play out. And there they're showing the classification, even though it's in a different way. But, yeah, Piastri leading by almost 2 seconds, and Leclerc third, 3.5 off the lead. Remember, Piastri's on the medium. Russell is on the soft tyre, so he's going to be the one to look out for. His tyres should fall away in these next few laps. And then that's where Leclerc, Norris, and Hamilton might have their fun, as Behrman locking up. And that's going to give an opportunity to Antonelli as Lawson gets a 5-second penalty for causing a collision, presumably with Lance Stroll. As Antonelli still stuck behind the young Brit. Both young, obviously. Behrman born in 2005 and Antonelli born in 2006. Just to make all of us feel extra old as fuck. As here is Lawson having contact with another driver. That was Hulkenberg. And yeah, Lawson having an absolutely abysmal season. And it only gets worse. As Antonelli trying to close in here.
Yeah, I don't think the timing's going to come back on the left-hand side because Russell's not even getting sector times. We're only getting lap times from Russell's car. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, outside of Sainz is 14th, isn't he?
Sainz is 14th, yes.
What's the order below him? Quickly.
Lawson in 15th, Hulkenberg 16th, Hadjar in 17th, Alonso 18th, Stroll 19th, and then Bortoletto in last.
Right. And actually, let me try and.
I think there was actually just an overtake though.
Oh yeah, Lawson. I've just had a look at it, and yeah, Lawson's just gone up to 14. Lawson's on the soft tire. That's why he's overtaking people all of a sudden. So let me just update that. So Sainz has had a disastrous race since this restart. So Sainz now 15th on the hard tyre. Hulkenberg is on the medium. Hadjar on the hard. And then the two Aston Martins are on the hard tyre with Bortoletto still at the back. On the medium is Lando Norris now on lap 44 within a second of Leclerc. But not close enough into turn one to overtake us. There, the order, I think, has now been restored on the left-hand side. Hopefully for now. As Carlos Sainz has now been overtaken by Hulkenberg. As Sainz's awful season continues, which is really disappointing because up until that safety car, he's having such a great race, and then it's just fallen apart since. Remember, Carlos has not scored. He scored 1 point in China, but except for that, he has not had anything else this season. So, what can Leclerc do to stop Norris, or what can the Norris do to get Leclerc? Norris absolutely has to overtake for his championship. As Antonelli, we're looking at the mini screen, is still closely following Behrman, who's still tucked up behind Tsunoda and Doohan in that epic fight for the final couple points paying positions. On lap 45, here comes Lando again, down to turn one. The McLaren just not quick enough down the straights. As we saw in the top speed data from qualifying, McLaren had the slowest top speed, which makes their pace that much more impressive, that they were able to get pole and, have such an impressive pace out front with the slowest car in a straight line at this track. But not helping Lando here against Leclerc. As I think Russell complaining there about the battery on the radio. I think he might have been. As Sainz been given a 10-second penalty for forcing another driver off the track. Is it me? Like, was he letting cars through? I'm not sure. But is it me, or does he look like he's got like a slow puncture, Carlos, or something? He's clearly got damage to his car.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
He definitely does.
That is... Yeah. I'm surprised he's not retiring with that. That is... He's got a hole in his side pod.
Oh.
He should be retiring. He's not going to finish in the points with that.
That is probably when he barged into Antonelli.
Yeah. So, and yeah, he's dropped to 20th now and been given a penalty of 10 seconds. So yeah, he may as well retire the car. As on lap 46, Norris tries again. He's a bit closer on this occasion. Leclerc, very late defensive move to the middle. And Lando, in reaction to that, locks up and goes wide. And loses a couple seconds. As Tsunoda, it appears, has finally passed Doohan after being stuck behind him since the safety car came in. So Tsunoda up to 9th. Sainz saying they should investigate Yuki because what he did to me was stupid. Exit of turn 1. I think that was him touching the his rear tyre. But, oh well, that's the way it goes. But, yeah, Leclerc did move late to the defend, and I think that is what caused Lando to go deep, didn't it? He got caught out by that. As
It just looks like he wasn't paying attention.
yeah, maybe surprised by the closing speed or something. As yeah, Carlos has been told to box to retire, so he is out of this race. And I'll just quickly update that. So yeah, and you can't race with a hole in your side pod. Maybe for a couple laps if it happens at the very end, but yeah.
Only Sebastian Vettel.
Oh yeah, yeah. Was it Brazil? Or was it somewhere
Brazil
else?
2012.
Yeah, it was. Still one of the most unbelievable drives we've ever seen. As Jack Doohan has dropped to 12th place all of a sudden and has been overtaken now by Albon. I fear Doohan might have a problem. Because he's just been overtaken by 3 cars out of nowhere, unless he's made a mistake. But Behrman is now 10th, Antonelli 11th, Albon 12th. Yeah, we'll have to see what happened.
I think it perhaps went wide at turn 4 because his first sector time was slow, and then it contributed onto his middle sector time. So maybe at turn 4.
Well, hopefully they'll offer up a replay of that in a moment. But
Piastri now 4.3 seconds ahead of Russell, stretching out his lead.
Yeah, Piastri is very comfortable now and should be all good up front as Norris closing on Leclerc again, but not close enough on this occasion, but he's at least getting back into Leclerc's slipstream to maybe have another go. As Piastri being told, remember to use the drink, and he responds, I would if it was working. And is anything that says, okay, well, 15 laps to or 10 laps to go. He has been incredibly comfortable out front. We've not really seen him at all. We haven't had to because he has been so comfortable. And Norris, we're looking at to see if he can get onto the podium. Norris has never. Yeah, Lando has never finished on the podium here in Bahrain. Leclerc obviously has won here before, knows what it's like to fight at the sharp end at this Grand Prix. He's been doing it for years, and that's why he's able to perform consistently so well and do a great job here keeping head. As Doohan has been given a black and white flag for track limits. Norris got a decent exit though from the final corner, and Norris is going to have a go. Leclerc defends to the inside. And Lando is going to go for the switchback. And he gets a great exit. Leclerc, though, pulls his car over to the other side to stop Lando. And that did work. Lando wasn't able to get the momentum on that occasion. But Lando's still going to try it around the outside of turn 4. But there's just not enough room. And Leclerc keeps it. Is that... did Leclerc push Lando off there? Or what do you think? I think Leclerc was fine, to be honest. But
I probably need a bit of probably need the onboard view to determine that.
yeah, I'm sure Lando will be saying he pushed me off, and would definitely would be worth another look. But Norris is still keeping up right up there with Leclerc. So even if Leclerc doesn't get a penalty, Norris still has a chance. And yeah, Norris is a replay. Leclerc did brilliantly to negate the advantage of the switchback on the exit turn 1. Lando still, though, obviously had the DRS and the slipstream. Up to turn 4, and I think he might have to give that position, Leclerc. I think he had enough of his car.
I agree.
Alongside. And Leclerc as well did go to the limit of the track, so it's not like Leclerc left a bit of space.
And Norris was fully alongside.
Yeah. So surely that will be at least noted and investigated. But if Norris can overtake Leclerc anyway, then at least that will remove the need for an investigation. As Russell being told there's a chance we lose the dash, just keep driving normal if that happens. And he says as long as the steering wheel doesn't fall off, and they say you'll be all right.
Of course, alluding to Alonso's steering wheel falling off in practice.
Yeah, as Lawson's been noted for another collision now, or that Hulkenberg collision. So probably get another penalty there. Will Lawson? But I will say Russell has done really well to hang on with those soft tyres. There is still a few laps to go, but he's really coped well. So credit to him. He's had a really great weekend. He's been on it from the moment we got here. And he deserves to finish in second, really. But whether he will finish, there's another story. Still another few laps to go. Lap 51. Norris closed on Leclerc into turn 1, but wasn't close enough. But I'm surprised we haven't seen it noted, the Leclerc-Norris incident, as Lawson now overtakes Doohan for 13th place. There's another fight we've got out there. Is Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen, only separated by a few tenths of a second. Every point matters, so if Max can finish in 6th, that would still mean something at the end of the season. But yeah, Lawson, the reason he's making moves is because he's on the soft tyre, but he will get relegated down the order, I'm sure, at the end. He'll probably end up at the back because of all the penalties he's accumulated. As Norris looking close up to the final corner. Can he get a good exit? He closes in a lot on entry. And then on the exit, not too bad, but I'm not sure if he's close enough still. Lap 52. As Russell saying, gears are fucked, what's going on? He's still okay for now, is Russell. But Lando has forced Leclerc into moving offline, and Leclerc's going to now have to defend as Norris gets a brilliant exit from turn 1. Round the outside, Lando will go. And he just about gets it done. Leclerc almost losing the car. Big snap of oversteer, but brilliant move from Lando. And he's up to 3rd, which may be very crucial at the end of this season, as Russell has been noted for a DRS infringement, which I would imagine is opening it when he wasn't supposed to.
Because they're having all these issues.
Electronic stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
But as much as we criticize him, that was a great move, wasn't it, by Norris? Even though he nearly messed it up by going a bit too wide, it was a great move into turn 4.
Yeah, very close there to some contact on the corner exit. But yeah, great move by Norris, a move that he had to get done eventually. And you could see how much grip he had compared to Leclerc. So now we're looking at Verstappen and Gasly, I assume.
Yeah, as for some reason, they've got the wrong order displayed and it's got Norris behind Leclerc. And now they've corrected it, thankfully. Lap 53. So 5 laps remain. And Gasly, if he can hang on, this would be a superb result. And 8 points would put Alpine up to 8th in the championship. But whether he will finish there is another story. Max is looking much quicker. And the decision to go on mediums, clearly, has helped his race quite a bit. As Russell is going to be investigated after the race.
And it's going to be a 1-2 here for McLaren.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
As those soft tyres, I'm not sure they're going to hang on much longer, as black and white flag for Norris for track limits. And we're looking at, I think, Antonelli still stuck behind Bem. And of course, teammates they were last year. As Tsunoda in 9th is right up behind Ocon in 8th. So Tsunoda looking to grab an extra couple points. Even though it's been a bit of a tricky race, I think Tsunoda has had a good weekend to get to Q3. And then he's had not a great race, but given where Max is, you can't really complain about what Tsunoda has done. So, yeah, credit to Tsunoda if he does finish in 8th. As Lando is just over a second behind Russell. And yeah, it's going to be very hard for Russell to keep him behind. But it's not impossible. We've seen crazy things happen here before. As the big train of cars behind Ocon continues. And this may get decided on the final lap. These few positions. As Leclerc now in 4th, falling away on the hard tyres. So disappointing. Ferrari at one point were looking so good. And the safety car came, and that is what cost them, I think, a podium here. If the safety car never came out, I think Leclerc would have finished at least in 3rd, maybe even 2nd today.
Yeah.
As another 10-second penalty for Lawson. So, yeah, Lawson is probably going to finish still last. As Verstappen still stuck behind Gasly, who has a bit of a wiggle on the exit of turn 11. As we move on to lap 55, and I think Russell has kept Lando just over a second behind. No, he's within a second. But we're not currently seeing that battle. But as Tsunoda now gets a black and white flag for track limits. Russell, of course, another driver in the championship fight. If he can hang on here, remember he will gain 3 points on Lando in the championship, and that will keep Russell only 14 points behind, which after 4 races is pretty good. So Russell has every incentive to hang on to second here. It could be the difference in Abu Dhabi. As Verstappen forces Gasly to defend at turn 4, he's going to go round the outside, but Gasly defends well and keeps him at bay. As Russell trying everything he can to keep Norris back. As they come up to turn 11. And Lando wiggling his way out at turn 11. And getting close to the back of that Mercedes, which is, again, really struggling on the soft tyre. The wrong decision, clearly, to end the race on that compound. And it might just cost them second here. We will see. As we begin the penultimate lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix. We know who's going to win this, but who will finish second? Will McLaren get the 1-2? Or will Russell finish in second as Lando darts around to try and distract his fellow Brit? But Russell was not falling for it. But up to turn 4, I think Russell might have to have a look at defending. No, he's kept just far enough ahead. And now it's all going to come down, probably, to the final lap. Down through those first few corners. But Russell's tyres, you can clearly see, are falling off. So it might even... Lando might even be able to get it done somewhere else if he can have much extra speed. Before we get to a possible overtake, Nib, quick word on our sure-to-be race winner, Oscar Piastri. What a drive.
Absolute perfection. Got the start. Just managed the race comfortably. Got the gap. Managed his tyres well. It's going to be, 2 points behind in the championship if Norris doesn't get past here. So, a massive weekend for Piastri and a much-needed win for McLaren after last week.
Absolutely. As we now begin the final lap, Norris did not have a great final sector. Here we go into turn 1. Can Russell hang on? Or will McLaren get the 1-2? Lando sends it around the outside, but Russell pushes Lando out. Brilliant hard defense, and I think that might just keep Russell ahead. And that was absolutely superb from Russell. Lando, though, a bit surprised that he decided to go for that move rather than try a switchback, given how much better his tyres are in terms of tyre condition. But there is still time for Lando to overtake. There's still quite a few corners to go, and those soft tyres have absolutely fallen off. As into turn 10 they come. And Russell gets a good enough exit. Of course, Russell will be investigated after the race for a DRS infringement. If he gets a penalty for that, then this might be for for nothing in the end, but hopefully not. As Russell still hanging on for now, but coming through the final corner to be the first driver to take 2 wins in 2025, Oscar Piastri wins in Bahrain. McLaren take their first ever win in Bahrain. Will they get a 1-2? No, they will not. It will be George Russell second. What a result, and what a massive result that might be in December. Lando Norris third. Leclerc fourth. Hamilton fifth. Gasly should come home sixth. Verstappen seventh. Ocon eighth. And then Tsunoda ninth. Behrman 10th. And then it should be Gasly has dropped behind Verstappen. at the very end, though. I'm not sure if Gasly had a problem or had a penalty. But Gasly has ended up behind Verstappen somehow.
I think because they're all doing everything manually because of the timing issue with Russell, so that's why it's a little bit delayed on overtakes. It's not actually live on the screen there.
Right. Well, Verstappen then is finished in 6th. Gasly 7th, Ocon 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Behrman 10th, Antonelli 11th, and then Albon, Doohan, Hulkenberg, Hadjar, Alonso, Lawson, Stroll, and Bortoletto. That is your Bahrain Grand Prix. But as I said, the first driver to get 2 wins this season is Piastri. And he is not quite in the lead of the championship. He is now 3 points behind going into the next Grand Prix. A Grand Prix in Jeddah where last year he was incredibly quick and may very well win again next week. And if he does win next week, then of course he will take the lead of the championship. We will see. But brilliant result for Russell to finish second. Like I said, that might be absolutely crucial at the end of this season. Russell only 14 points behind. Mercedes just need that little upgrade and they will be absolutely in the championship fight, at least on the driver's side. But that was a brilliant race from start to finish. That was... It could have been probably better if the safety car had not come out. That probably spoiled things a bit. But that was a brilliant Grand Prix. But Nib, driver of the day, who would you go for?
Ocon?
Maybe it's
I don't know.
maybe Behrman.
There's
He
a few
started at the
options.
back.
Ocon, Behrman. I mean, Gasly did a tremendous job to keep that Alpine right up there as well. I mean, there's Piastri, there's quite frankly Russell as well. There's lots of options. I'm going to be biased. Piastri.
It was a great drive from Oscar. It kept calm when others behind him, particularly his teammate, did not. And Piastri.
Yeah, but my not so biased answer is definitely probably Ocon.
Yeah, I think for me it's between Ocon and Behrman. I think I'd probably go Ocon. I think it's very tempting to go Behrman because he started last, but I think after Ocon, remember, had a big crash yesterday. That was very impressive. And at one moment, Ocon was, I think, 6th in the race. So, yeah. But anyway, I'll put the poll in the chat and we'll see what you guys have to say. But yeah, that was a very good race. And the thing that was so great about that is exactly why 2025 should be a great season, because it was pretty close and competitive through the field.
Yeah, just unfortunately that safety car probably ruined things a little bit. I mean, we still got like a decent end, but just a bit unfortunate with that safety car having to come out, because I mean Leclerc would have been really interesting what the Ferraris could have done in that final stint.
Yeah, like I said, I think Leclerc was probably going to finish in 2nd, and Hamilton maybe could have got close to a podium in the end. Well, yeah, it would have been interesting to find out, but at least strategically, Ferrari got it absolutely bang on. It's just bad luck in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. There's the poll in the chat. Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, and Behrman are your options. I will go for Ocon as my driver of the day. But yeah, that was, like I said, that was a brilliant Grand Prix. in Bahrain. And the first, probably good Bahrain Grand Prix we've had in about 3 or 4 years. Normally, this race has been pretty exciting. The last couple of years, it was mainly boring because Red Bull were obviously just streets ahead of everybody else. But yeah, this race was good. Absolutely. And let's hope it's as close and competitive next week in Saudi Arabia. A Grand Prix that really McLaren should dominate, you would imagine. Especially that first sector. They're going to be miles ahead of everyone, especially in the race. So,
yeah. I probably won't be on next weekend because it is at 3 a.m.
yeah, a
I'll
couple
probably be
hours later,
watching,
isn't
but
it?
yeah, but I just don't want to be blabbering. I probably won't be on for the next few because then Miami's at 6 a.m. And then once we get into Europe, we'll be all good, back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Imola about a month from now is the next good timing for you. Let me read some quick comments here before we head off. Will F1 Norris isn't good enough and will never win a championship.
Agreed.
Woden says you can tell Antonelli is going to be top tier. Even though Antonelli finished 11th, some great moves today from him, and he's already in the 4 races he's done. He has shown clear signs that once it all comes together, God, is he going to be some driver. And remember, he's only 18 years old. Turns 19 in, I think, end of August, I think it is. So, yeah. And I have to say as well, Oliver Behrman, 20 years old. He's about to turn 21, I think, just after the Miami Grand Prix. Also, what a driver he is. That's his 3rd points finish in a row. So, what a season Behrman is having as well in that Haas. Still behind Ocon in the championship. Ocon is still top 10 in the championship. Ocon on, I think, 14 points and Behrman's on, I think, 6 points. But yeah, Behrman is really been great in especially the races. So the Formula One, the future of Formula One is very bright. Put it that way. Red Bull car average this weekend, yeah. This has easily been their worst Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Crystal Racing says Russell for driver of the day. Jazztastic, so who's top of the championship? I will quickly go through the top 10. So Norris is in the lead, 3 points clear of Piastri. Max is 3rd, 8 points off the lead. So still not too bad for Max. Russell 4th and 14 points behind. And then a big gap, a 31-point gap between 4th and 5th. To Leclerc, who is now just ahead of Antonelli. Antonelli, of course, didn't score a point today. Hamilton is now 7th, Albon 8th, Ocon 9th, Stroll 10th. And then McLaren are now about 60 points clear in the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull, 22 points behind Mercedes in 3rd. Ferrari in 4th. Ferrari only 14 behind Red Bull, so that's going to get close. And Ferrari, looking at what Red Bull are doing at the minute, Ferrari probably will overtake Red Bull in the next couple races. Haas are now 5th in the championship. Who would have thought after that first Grand Prix where they looked like they were driving Caterhams in Melbourne? They were like 5 seconds a lap off the pace, and now they are 5th in the championship. Quite incredible. Williams, though, only 1 point behind in 6th. That midfield is going to be such a good fight this year. Aston Martin 7th, Racing Bulls 8th. Alpine up to 9th. They score 6 points, so they're up to 9th. And Sauber now 10th. 14 points separate 5th from 10th. So, yeah, the midfield is going to be mental this year. Just like the front pack. But there is pretty much a clear win after 32 votes of the poll. And I asked you guys, who do you think is driver of the day for the race in Bahrain? And 53% of the vote has gone to Oscar Piastri. It was a great drive. And you have to say, over the weekend, out of all of the top drivers, he was easily the best. Nobody could touch him this weekend. Didn't put a foot wrong. Behrman, 28% of the vote. Gasly, 15%. Ocon, 3% of the vote. But, yeah, brilliant drive from Oscar and a fantastic weekend for him. And we'll see whether he's leading the championship, possibly, by the end of next week's Grand Prix. Nib, cheers for coming on for what was a really good Grand Prix this time. And yeah, as you said, you won't be able to come on for the next couple races, but we will be obviously happy to see you back for Imola, where Oscar, like I said, could very well be leading the championship by then.
I'd be disappointed if he wasn't, quite frankly, the way he's performing so far this season.
Yeah.
But yes, thankfully that was much better than the previous 2 Grand Prix. So thankfully, even though I am quite tired, it was quite exciting. Just a shame that the safety car had to come out, that there wasn't enough gap for them to run out onto the track to clear the debris under a VSC. But good race and a great win and a great weekend by Oscar Piastri, and I'm very pleased about that. But yeah, thanks for you guys' continued support. To all the regulars in chat, great to see you as always. And Will and Seru, stop arguing as always. And yeah, we'll see you later.
Yeah, cheers, mate, for coming on. And yeah, it's been a great weekend. Thank you, by the way, for so many coming along to view the stream. Obviously, we had, I think, 35,000 views on yesterday's stream, and we've had about 25,000 views for today's stream. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for coming along for the race and qualifying streams. Tomorrow, I will be uploading a podcast reviewing just what happened in this Bahrain weekend. And then, next week, I will be live for both qualifying and the race. For qualifying, I will be going live at 4:30 p.m. UK time, as usual, an hour and a half before quali, to do the qualifying watch-along. And then, as usual, 2 hours before the race, I'll be live for the race watch-along at 4 p.m. UK time next Sunday. So, yeah, make sure to join me for that, for another, hopefully, exciting Formula 1 Grand Prix. But yeah, thank you guys for coming along for all the content this weekend. Been great to have you. Like I said, make sure to come along for the podcast tomorrow and give your overall thoughts for the race and just what happened. And make sure to join me next week for the 5th race of this 2025 season. What a championship we have on our hands. Only 14 points separate the top 4 in the championship. That is exactly what we want. And I cannot wait to see how it all goes the rest of this season. But yeah, here's for you guys coming along this weekend. And I hope to see you for the podcast and hope to see you next week for the quali and race streams for Saudi Arabia. But until my podcast tomorrow and my qualifying watch along next Saturday, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.